Hey listeners, how are you all? Thank you so much for being our awesome members. Join Patreon if you want lemons, link in the description. There's a lot to come more. Sit tight, be comfy. Put your headphones, now let's begin. Let's see food scrolls, asked a boy of 17 with blonde spiky hair and blue slitted cerulean eyes. He had fox-like whiskers marks. On his cheeks he was Uzumaki Naruto accomplished sealing and ninjutsu master. Check, stated a girl of 13 in a very lazy way. She had black spiky hair in a ponytail pineapple hairstyle. She had black slitted eyes that held a lazy gleam to them. Her name was Nara Rei, last of the Nara clan. Naruto's food scrolls. Check sensei. Shinobi clothes. Check. Rei's clothes. I got it sensei. Alright, calm down, just a few more to go. Rei's food scrolls. Check. Damn it, why does he have to be so troublesome? Don't know, but I think he likes making you mad, Rei. I know, Kira, that's why I called him troublesome. Weapons scroll. Check. Rubies and diamond scrolls. Check. Damn it, can we just go sensei? Staying here is too depressing, the girl named Rei said in a very lazy with a slight edge to her tone. Currently she was sitting down in a chair in the old Hokage's office checking off a list of scrolls. Why she was doing it? You may ask, because currently only her and her sense I were the only few survivors left in a war between Konoha and Suna against Iwa, Sound, Kumo, Kiri, Kusa and Aim. They were currently on the brink of destruction with the Hokage dead and all the major clans wiped out. There was no reason to stay, so she and her sensei were traveling to another world with the help of their respectable demons. Her sensei Uzumaki, or should I say Kazama Uzumaki Naruto W. as the host of the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed fox demon who attacked Konoha 17 years ago. His father the Yondaime sealed the fox into his own son, hoping the villagers will see him as a hero, but things don't always go as planned. The village hated him, and when he became a shinobi for the village they hated him even more, but could do nothing about it since now he was shinobi for their village. Nara Ri. I was a reincarnation of the Gobi, the five-tai phoenix. She had all of Gobi abilities to control flames and bend it to her will. She also found out that she could talk to the Gobi, whose name was Kira. A beautiful red-head and green-eye girl. Rei became Naruto's apprentice one day when she found out that he was Seal Master and was trained by the legendary Jiraiya the Gama Sennin, or Jiraiya of the Sannin. They connected easily because they both had something in common. They both had something to do with demons, so he took her as his apprentice. Naruto found out a year later when she was 12 that she was his close friend Shikamaru's sister. Naruto also found out he had a bloodline called the Darkness Eye. It allows him to control the power of the Darkness Flame and also the Dragon of the Darkness Flame. His eye becomes black with 3 white tomo marks surrounding the iris. The Darkness Dragon is located into Naruto's right arm, and it's wrapped in white bandages that are right under his black bandages that he has on them. The dragon is also a very seductive one who is always trying to get Naruto to come into her domain and have sex with her, but Kyuubi stops that only because she wants to take him first. The dragon's name is Shia and is always helpful when she needs to be by letting Naruto use her sons for the Darkness Dragon technique. This eye also allow him to track fast-moving objects like the Sharingan, but unlike it he is able to have perfect chakra control. When he found out who his father was and what he did to him, he wouldn't talk to anybody for days. After he finally talked it out, he understood why he did it. He couldn't ask any other parent to give up their child when he had one of his own, plus he was the Hokage, so it was his duty to do it. So they stuck together for a long time, teacher and student, through thick and thin, even though she wondered why she had such a troublesome sensei. Now they were both going to a new world because everyone they know and love was gone. Naruto lost his girlfriend Temari about a year ago when the war started, and the only thing that he has to remember her by is the giant fan she gave him with a picture of a black fox with 9 tails that made mini circles with its tail. Rei lost everything: her father, mother, brother, the clan and all her friends. Since they both had nothing left, Kyuubi and Kira made them a deal. Kyuubi or Mai told him that if he rip up half of the seal so she could see the things he see and feel the things he feels, she would take him to another world along with his apprentice. The only downside to it is that he becomes a half-demon, nothing bad like tails or anything, just heightened senses, power over 9 elements thanks to Kyuubi's tails, and the ability to mark his mate and also turn her into a LF demon so they could live out their lives together. Rei basically had to go through the same thing just with mastery over 5 elements. Now here they are both packing up the last of their things. They were both dressed and ready to go. Naruto wore white trench coat with a black flame that had a black dragon wrapping around the flame. He also had the darkness flame written in kanji right below his shoulders. He wore a black undershirt with black shinobi pants and black ninja sandals. He wore his forehead protector around his waist in a black cloth like a belt. Rei wore similar clothing. She had on a black trench coat with a white phoenix on the back with 5 tails. The words phoenix written in white kanji letters. She wore a white undershirt with black flames at the bottom of her shirt. She wore black shinobi pants with black ninja sandals. She wore her forehead protector that was in a black cloth around her left arm. Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Naruto asked, jumping to his feet from his spot on the floor with his fan strapped to his back. Check in Naruto family scrolls. Also check now. Can we go? She asked in her same lazy tone but with a hint of eagerness in them. Yeah, sure am. Make sure you have a tight grip on me when Kyuubi starts the jutsu, he told her right before he contacted Kyuubi. Kyuubi were ready, he told the demon queen. Naruto blue slit eyes soon turned into red. Slitted eyes indicating that Kyuubi was in control. Right now hold Rei-chan while I do this jutsu, she told the girl, and when she thought that Rei was on tight enough she started her jutsu. The jutsu itself took about 10 minutes to do and Kyuubi had done over 1,000 seals. After about 5 more minutes Kyuubi was done with the jutsu and called out, Universal Transport no Jutsu, and then He both vanish, leaving their old world behind and going to a new one where they could start over. Alabasta. When they arrived in the new world they both knew they made it. They took in their surroundings. They were at loading dock. 20 ships with the word marine on them with hundreds of people on each one. Soon they got bored and started walking around when a marine walked up behind them and tapped Rei on the shoulder. Acting on reflex, she kicked the poor marine in the face, making him crash into some nearby wine barrels. When the others saw this they dropped what they were doing and turned towards Naruto and Rei. Weil said, girl rubbed the back of her head like her sensei does when he does something embarrassing. Sorry, I hope I didn't hurt you too bad, she told the marine lazily. This Only riled up the other marines, saying things like, you can't apologize talking like that, or, she struck a marine, that's against the law. While they were talking both Naruto and Rei walked away talking about other things. You know, you should really work on that reflex of yours, it's going to get us in trouble one day, Naruto lectured her while walking down the road. Continue to ignore the complaining Marines, that is, until a group of them surrounded them. Why are you morons bothering us? We had a long day and we just want to go rest, Naruto complained while rubbing his temples. We're going to make you pay for striking a marine. A soldier of the world government, called out one cocky marine before he charged at Naruto. Before he could even reach him he was silenced by a kunai at his neck by one Nara Rei. Make any move and you die, she said, losing the laziness in her voice and replaced it with a cold one that sent shivers down the surrounding marine's spine. Then she pointed at the frightened marines. You guys make any moves and he's dead, she said, pointing at the now whimpering marine. Taking the now whimpering marine, then shoving him down to ground, she turns and walk away only to be grabbed by a cloud of smoke. She turns and looks at her assailant and sees it a man with white hair with black eyes who was smoking a cigar. He had on a white jacket with the words justice written on the back in kanji. He also had a big judy strapped to his back. He wore no shirt and had many cigars on his jacket. He wore green pants with a pair of black shoes. Now Smoker-kun, why don't you let me handle her for threatening my men, said a woman with light pink hair that went to her back with black eyes. She had red lipstick on with a cigarette in her mouth. She wore a blood red suit with black dress shoes. Now why don't you tell Captain Hina your name, little girl? Captain Hina asked Rei, who was still being held by Smoker. Nara Rei, she said simply and lazily with a small smirk on her face that infuriated the captain, but she held it back and saved it for the bashing she was going to give the little girl. And you are? Smoker demanded from Naruto. Said boy only looked at him with an annoyed expression on his face before reaching for the fan on his back and slamming on the ground, making a number of marines jump. Uzumaki Naruto, he said with a smirk on his face. Now that the introductions are done, why don't you let go of my apprentice before I make you smoky man, he finished with an even bigger smirk than before, but on the inside he was thinking different thoughts. Holy shit, is he made out of smoke or something? Causing Kyuubi to sweat drop at her container's response. Smoker said nothing, only held her tighter and pulled her towards him. Seeing this, Naruto picked up his fan and opened it up, showing his black fox with its 9 tails in all its glory. Many stared at it in confusion, and all while the captain stared at it with an eyebrow raised. What are you going to do with that? Swing it! One of the Marines yelled, causing a chorus of laughter to fill the air. Naruto looked at them with annoyance before shutting them up with a massive amount of killing intent. Many of the Marines wet themselves while the others were shaking and seeing their deaths before their eyes. The captains were also shaking and scared, but they wouldn't show it. Who is this kid? Both captains thought simultaneously. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do, he told them. Ray, get ready. When he heard a yes sensei, he started his attack. He brought the fan back and swung, then yelled out, Kamedachi no Jutsu. Then a giant gust of slicing whirlwinds made their way to the Marines. When the attack reached Ray, she used a simple Kamawari to replace herself with a Marine who wasn't in the line of the attack, making him and everyone else get caught in the attack. Smoker got hit the worse, he was bleeding all over his body. Damn, who is this guy? Did he eat the K's? No, am I really shouldn't have underestimated him, he thought before his world went dark. Captain Hina hid behind one of the buildings and called for some reinforcements. That guy, he just took out Smock. And about 200 of my soldiers. Hina is not happy, she thought angrily right before she rushed out of her hiding place towards Ray direction. Scene change. With Ray. Meanwhile, Ray was fighting the incoming reinforcements. She was cutting through the soldiers with such swift movement with her kunai, it was as if she was dancing. She jumped back a long distance when she saw about 100 soldiers rushing towards her. Going through some hand seals, she called out, Kajimane no Jutsu. Success! She had captured them all in her shadow. She dug in her pocket and took a solider pill, then pop it into her mouth, blasting her chakra levels to new heights. She then made another hand seal and says, Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu, and started choking them all with her shadow until they went unconscious. She turned her backs to the Marines who were barely awake to see her white phoenix in all its glory that was on her black trench coat. She then took off to find her sensei. What she didn't notice was that there was a certain Marine who didn't fight who took a picture of her when she first did the Kajimane, who also took off to follow after her. Before she could get to her sensei, she stopped in her tracks when she saw who was in front of her. Captain Hina was there with her hands on her hips with a pissed off expression on her face. Hina is really pissed, she said coldly before rushing at Ray. With speeds that said girl could barely keep up with. She suddenly felt an intense pain go through her head before she was sent crashing through one of the Marine ships. Picking herself up holding her bleeding head, she finds herself surrounded by more Marines with Captain Hina jumping through the recently made hole in the ship. Damn, she's fast, Ray thought looking up at Hina's smirking face. Are you going to do? Ray, let her beat you, Kira snarled, speaking up, giving a mental glare at Ray from her cage. No, I'm not, Kira, let me use some of your chakra. They are going to feel the full force of my power over the shadows. Ray told Kira, smirking at the surrounding Marines. I told you once before, it's your chakra, not mine, Kira told her while feeding Ray some of her chakra. I know, but as long as your spirit is inside of me, it is still your chakra, she told her grimly, knowing what would become of her friend's spirit one day. As soon as she finished her thought, she felt the effects of Kira's chakra flowing through her, making her appearance change slightly. Her black hair soon had highlights of red and yellow going through them. Her eyes changed from black slits to gold ones with a tinge of red in them. She was now showing a small fang sticking out the corner of her mouth. Her nails turned into claws and was covered in flames. Her whole body was giving off a golden and red aura. When she sees the reaction of the Marines, she gives a small smirk before disappearing and reappearing in front of Hina, giving her solid punch in her gut with her right flaming fist, making Hina scream out in pain while clutching her scorching stomach. Before she could get over her pain, she felt a kick connecting with her chin, sending her out of the ship, making her crash into another one station right next to it. Coughing up blood, she stared at the girl who was giving her so much pain, dealing with all of her men like they were new recruits. Fresh into the Marines, she was fighting about 50 Her men on land with her appearance returned to normal, glaring fiercely at them. Rei soon rushed at the group of Marines that were trying to block her way from going to her sensei. Thinking she had out of this, she flared some of her chakra and started making hand seals. After she went through about 50 seals, she shouted her jutsu, Kagenuma no Jutsu, she said, slamming her hands on the ground. The shadows of the nearby buildings and ships gathered under the Marines. Soon the shadows began dragging in the now screaming Marines one by one until none were left. Giving one last look at the gawking Hina, she turned and left to search for her sensei. When she was almost out of earshot, she heard Hina yell out at her. "Damn you, Nara, Hina will capture you," Hina screamed at the retreating form of Rei, who she now dubbed as Shadow Phoenix, before going into the world of unconsciousness. Scene change. With Naruto. When Rei found her sensei, she saw him knocking out another wave of Marines with his Kamedachi no Jutsu. She soon joined him, using her shadow to choke most of her victims. All the while the cameraman was taking pictures of them, while they battled the onslaught of Marines. When Naruto let loose another Kamedachi, he accidentally hit a Marine ship that was holding a special captive. One of the Shichibukai Sir Crocodile, and he was pissed. When he got out of the ship, he found the cause of why the ship had blown up. He saw a blonde swinging a huge fan, making huge whirlwinds, taking down hundreds of Marine soldiers. He looked to his right and found a girl using her shadow to NGLE the Marines, making them fall unconscious. Yes, he thought, I could use them to destroy Straw Hat Luffy, he thought with a crazed smile before he rushed to the air using the powers of the Suna no Mi. When he appeared, everyone stopped their fighting. Crocodile points over to Naruto and Rei, who also stopped fighting and glared at the newcomer. "Who are you?" Naruto asked in an icy tone. "On trust the guy, there's something wrong with him, just like that smoker guy. The first have a feeling that he wasn't using jutsu when he used that smoke attack to capture Rei. I had no time to think about but now." Naruto thought, never taking his eyes off of Crocodile. "Me. Everybody knows me. I'm Sir Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, and I'm here to recruit you two to help me get my revenge on a pirate known as Monkey D. Luffy, will you help me?" "So what do you say?" he asked with a cocky smile, knowing that he would accept since he now knew his name. Naruto puts his fan down and raises his hand to Crocodile, engulfing it in a dark fire with his darkness eye flaring, earning a few gasps of surprise for all who could see it. "Sorry, but I never fight for revenge," he says with a cold smile on his lips. "Plus I don't like you, now take this," Naruto yelled, rushing towards Crocodile at speeds that he couldn't keep up with. He cocked his fist back as soon as he had reached him. He yelled out, "Jiao Insatsu Rengoku Sho," and started delivering fast punches to Crocodile's sand body, turning it into hot glass, making it so he couldn't move. Naruto stared at him with cold eyes. Before getting an idea, he jumps back towards his fan. He looked back at Rei to see her fighting off more Marines. "Rei," he shouts at her to get her attention on him. When he does, he points at Crocodile, who's glaring at Naruto with pure hatred. "What are you? Did you eat the Mera no Mi?" Crocodile snarled at him, still trying to move his body but was unable to due to Naruto's previous attack. Naruto looks at him with confusion and tells him no. Crocodile laughs at him with a laugh that some people would call insane. "Do know what a devil fruit is?" When he sees Naruto shake his head no, he explains. "You see, there are people just like me all over the Grand Line who had eaten one of the fruits that gives us special abilities like me. My body is made out of sand because I ate the Suna no Mi," he told him, seeing his confusion gone place with another one. "Let me show you," he stated, making his arms turn to sand but his body stay at the spot and sending it at Naruto, who swiftly dodged Crocodile's attack, sending another Jiao Insatsu Rengoku Sho at the sand and turning them into glass as well, so he couldn't move his arms. Naruto asks Crocodile an important question. "What's the Grand Line?" When he says this, Uxa disbelief come all over the people in the area. "You're in the Grand Line, you idiot," shouted half the people there, making Naruto clutch his ears. "Okay, I don't care." Ready for a combination attack. When he finds that Rei was right next to him. "Yes, sensei," she replied lazily. "Okay, I need you to do your strongest fire jutsu, all right," he tells her, and glaring at her slightly when he hears her say something along the lines of troublesome blondes. She then performed her jutsu, Kaden. Karyu Enden, she shouted, shooting a stream of fire from her mouth. While she's doing this, Naruto grabs his fan and call out his jutsu. Futon. Daitapa. When the powerful air blast collided with the fire jutsu, it turned in a giant firestorm heading right at Crocodile, who was staring at the storm in fear. When the firestorm hit, they called out, Fuyasutumu no Jutsu. They shouted in unison, turning Crocodile's sand body into a glass one. They turned to see the many marine boats lined up at dock. Looking at one another, they came to a silent agreement. Going through some hand seals, they call out their jutsus. Sweden. Dabakufu no Jutsu. Naruto shouted, destroying half of the marine ships with large water blast from his mouth. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Ray called out, creating a water dragon and destroying most of the other marine ships. They see 3 marine ships remaining and rushed towards one of them. Naruto uses a few Kage Bunshin to get the ship to start moving, and they soon headed out to sea, leaving the defeated marines and one very pissed off Captain Smoker, who just regained consciousness to make his report to the world government leaders. Scene change. Marine headquarters. Did you all hear Smoker's report? Said one of the men in the shadows holding a cane. Yes, I did, but I find it hard to believe that only 2 people, 2 out 2 of our best and their men, replied another man, running his hand through his long beard. I also find it hard to believe, but we all know that Smoker would not lie to us about something so important, an old woman said, tapping her fingers on the desk in front of her. Yes, and also he said that they had strange abilities not connected to the devil fruits, said another one of the men with brass knuckles on his hands. Yes, an ability to use shadows to bind and choke people, and who knows what else this girl could do with them, said the woman, looking at a picture of Ray performing the Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu on a dozen marines. Also, reports say that she killed a few dozen soldiers by engulfing them in her shadow, said the man with the cane, now passing the picture with Naruto on it with his giant fan in his hand, performing the Kameidachi no Jutsu. This boy Uzumaki Naruto is also a dangerous one, said the same man with the cane. Smoker tells me that he is the girl's sensei, said the woman, also looking at Naruto's picture. The report says that he is able to summon fierce winds with them and is capable of taking down 100 marines with one swing. Another woman says, this time a lot younger than the other one. Hina reports that some of her marines saw him use some kind of darkness flame attack to turn Crocodile's sand torso into glass one. The woman finishes with a sadistic smirk on her face. Yes, these 2 are dangerous indeed. To be able to take down him without much trouble, these 2 may become a problem. Not even Monkey D. Luffy was able to take him down without getting seriously injured, from what my men tell me, the same young woman said with an even bigger smirk on her face than before. These 2 will be getting an higher bounty than that of Straw Hat Luffy, said the man with the cane. I agree, but what has me interested is the reports saying the strange transformation the 2 went through, one of the more silent members said out of the blue, who was slightly older than the young woman. She was also in the shadows. The only thing you could see of her was her black nail polish nails that were on the table in view for all to see. What transformation? Said the old woman, glaring at the younger woman who just spoke. She never really liked the younger generation being in on their meetings. When Hina confronted this girl Nara Ray on one of the marine ships, she said that she went through a transformation. Her normal black hair gained red and yellow highlights in them. Her black slit eyes turn into a gold version with a tinge of red in them. Her normal hands turn into claws, pretty much giving her a feral look, the woman explained, rubbing her temples. What about the boy? Explained Shayna. The old man the cane demanded from the woman now known as Shayna. Uzumaki's eyes become black with 3 white tomo-like markings surrounding the iris. She tells them, passing around pictures of their transform appearances. I've decided on what bounty to give these 2. Right now they are a threat to the world government as a Straw Hat Luffy, but these 2 may pose more of a problem here as their bounty. The man with the cane said, passing a paper around with the bounties. They read as following. Uzumaki Naruto of the Darkness Flame 125 million belly, Nara Ray the Shadow Phoenix 110 million belly. They have an even higher bounty than Monkey D. Luffy did. He defeated Crocodile, the man with the brass knuckles said in shock. Yes, they do pose an even bigger threat than him, so we must have them taken out as soon as possible. The man with the cane said in a tone that meant that he was completely serious. Yes, they are a threat. Send out their bounty posters immediately, the younger woman said, hiding a grin in the shadows but was felt by the surrounding people. What do you find so amusing, Elsa? The man with the cane told her in an emotionless voice but held a demanding tone to it. No thing really, it's just that these two are going to make the hunt very interesting, she said before she got up from her chair, then silently walked out the room with their pictures and bounty in her hands. If there is not anything else to be discussed, this meeting is over, the man with the cane said, who also left the room with the other members following, all except one who was still sitting tapping her black nails on the table. Uzumaki Naruto, Nara Ray, and Monkey D. Luffy, these three will pose a big problem for my plans in the future, I just know it, Shayna said quietly before also leaving the room to think over ways to get rid of those three pirates. So how you guys like it? I hope I didn't make them too strong, but I don't need to worry about that since Naruto is older than he is in the sea. Anan and my OC had to use her demonic chakra to defeat Hina, so I think I did okay. In this story Naruto will have two apprentices, the first one you already met and the other one is going to be from Skypia. That is all I will say. Let's see if you can guess who it is. Pairings, I don't really know, I was thinking about a Naruto Nami pairing. Maelstrom and Wave, go figure. But if you don't want that pair, I can always change it, but it will most likely stay as is. For my OC I will think who to pair her with later. My polls for my next story is still up, it's just that I already started writing this one, so I thought I should just put it up. Here they are again. Which one should I do next? Naruto Digimon, with Shikamaru joining Naruto in the digital world where they meet the chosen children from the O2 series, where Naruto and Shikamaru have Saver's Digivice IC burst. Naruto Angelic Layer, 13-year-old Naruto experimenting with hand seals and ends up in this world where he witnesses the final round D of the Angelic Layer tournament, where Hikaru and Athena fights, and he joins the next tournament 2 years later with his angel. Naruto WITCH, 18-year-old Naruto attempts to go to the past but ends up in another world in his 14-year-old body, helping the Guardians against their fight to protect the heart of Kandrakar. Naruto Avatar, The Last Airbender, 13-year-old Naruto is transported by past avatars to aid Aang in his fight against the Fire Nation. Naruto Code Lyoko, Kakashi accidentally sends 17-year-old Naruto to another dimension where he ends up outside of Katek Junior High School in his 13-year-old body. Remember, vote and review. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is ready to begin. In this chapter we meet Luffy and his crew. Remember, I do not own Naruto or One Piece. Now since that's over, let the story begin. Warning: chapter is going to be very long. At sea. A month has passed since the incident at the Alabasta harbor with the Marines. Currently Naruto and his student was sailing on their stolen marine ship with nothing to do. Ray was currently laying on deck watching the clouds go by, wishing she had some sake. Now Ray wouldn't be thinking about sake if it hadn't been for all the tea. Naruto left her with the Hokage while he went on missions for the village. When she was with Tsunade she picked up her habit of drinking. She doesn't drink as much as Tsunade does, but she would ill drink a lot when she wasn't cloud gazing or was just feeling highly irritated because of her troublesome sensei. Right now she wished that they reached an island soon because she wouldn't be able to take too much of her sensei playing a game of Shinobi Jenkin with his clones. Jan, Naruto and his clones shouted in a circle, pulling their hands back into fist. Ken, they continued building up large amounts of chakra. Po, they finished throwing their hands into the circle, exploding their chakra, creating a dust cloud concealing their bodies from being seen. When the cloud disappeared it showed WN2 Narutos with 2 fingers apart holding them vertically while the last one held his in a fist. Earning 2 distraught Narutos, a cheering clone, and a very pissed off Ray. I won. Yes, you two lost and I'm the winner. The clone shouted, doing a victory dance. While the original Naruto and his clone glance at each other, then pounced on the clone, making him poof up in a cloud of smoke. Ha, that would teach him to gloat. Naruto and his clone said in unison with their arms crossed over their chest right before the clone got dispelled by Ray, who threw a kunai at it. Play that game again, sense. I will personally. Forget it, dealing with you is too troublesome, Ray said before she walked over to the edge of the ship before her eyes widened slightly. She saw an island not too far from And pulled out a map that she got from a office from the ship. The map says that the island I'm seeing is a place called Jaya, she says, leaving the deck and heading into the office where she found the map to look the island up in the island archives. While she was searching, Naruto was looking at the island with excitement in his eyes. Finally, I thought I was going to die of boredom, Naruto thought very loudly in his mind, waking up two very demons that he really did not want to have to deal with right now. How are you, Naruto-kun? Said the very seductive voice of Shia, who was currently laying in her bed watching what Naruto was viewing through the TV in her room. Say, Naruto-kun, when are you coming to visit me? She said, licking her lips that Naruto felt within his mind, making him shiver slightly. Sorry, Shia-chan, but I really been busy, Naruto said quickly. A little too quickly. He felt the sensation of him being pulled into his mind, but it was soon stopped by Kyuubi. What do you think you're doing, Shia? Kyuubi snarled at her from her cage. There was no way that she was going to let her take Naruto before she got to him first. You wouldn't want me to rip out that precious tongue of yours now, do you? Kyuubi finished vanishing from her cage and reappearing in Shia's room. Said dragon was currently flexing the claws on her blue body. I will have him first, Fox, Shia said, leaping at Kyuubi with her claws aiming at her neck. Kyuubi just dodge and pounce on Shia, grabbing her by her long black hair. Naruto soon cut his connection with those two as soon as Rei came back out on deck. She was carrying a piece of paper in her hand. What's that you got there, Rei? Naruto asked as she walked over to him, as continued to stare at the upcoming island. It's just some information on that island, Jaya, she told him before reading the information she had on it and summarized it to her sensei. Apparently this is where a whole lot of pirates rested and stock up on supplies. Basically, you will have to be a very stupid marine to step foot on that island, and since we are approaching it in a marine's ship, maybe we should henge the ship so we don't be attacked by pirates the moment we land. She told her sensei, who was currently staring at Jaya with excitement written in his eyes. Okay, you henge the ship while I grab my fan. I'll also grab some belly from the inside that we could use to buy some things while we're there, he said, walking into the ship's sleeping area. And with that money, some sake, Rei said lazily while going through the hand seals for the henge no jutsu. When she was done, the ship changed from a blue and white marine ship into a black and white pirate ship with a black phoenix with crossbones on it, surrounded by a blue flame. Now, since that's over, time to watch the clouds, she thought as she lied down and began to stare at the clouds until she drifted off to sleep. Scene change. Jaya Island. After landing at port, Naruto and Rei exited their disguised ship. They looked at their surroundings and saw a ship with a smiling skull with a straw hat design on their sail docked right next to their ship. Not thinking anything else of it, they begin their walk through town. Naruto gave Rei some belly while he went off to buy some supplies for their next trip. Rei meanwhile had spotted a bar a few shops back and walked over to it. There she saw a group of pirates drinking and having a good time. She walks up to the bar and sits next to a boy with a straw hat who was currently eating a pie. Barkeep, can you give me a bottle of sake? She asked the bark. Eat lazily while gaining the attention of the people who was sitting next to her. A girl with orange hair turned to her with a shock expression on her face but said nothing and decided to watch. As did the guy with the straw hat and the man with green hair. Don't you think you're a little too young to be drinking, girly? The man at the bar said rather loudly, gaining the attention of the people in the bar. She just looks at him with a bored expression on her face before answering. Have you ever heard the saying, old enough to kill, old enough to drink? Huh? She asked him lazily, resting her chin and her hand, giving the barkeep a lazy look. She soon directed some killer intent at him while flashing her eyes gold for a brief second, but this was only caught by a few people. You killed before? Man with green hair asked her, eyed her suspiciously. She looks at him for a minute and answers his question while never breaking eye contact with him. Sadly, I have. Such is a life for a shinobi, he told him before looking back at the nervous barkeep. Now I would like some sake. I spent too long on the ship with my troublesome sensei and I need some to calm my nerves, she told him in the same lazy tone, but it held some irritation to it. When she sees the man bringing her a bottle, she smirks a little before drinking it down before asking for another one. The girl with orange hair and red eyes decided to speak up. Wow, I never seen a kid down sake like that before. I'm Nami and you are. Nami asked her, extending her hand to Rei. Nice to meet you Nami, my name is Nara Rei, she said while shaking her hand. The man with green hair spoke up next. Rorano Azoro, he says and receive a nod from Rei. Then the boy with the straw hat spoke up next with a piece of pie attached to his fork. You can call me Monkey D. Luffy and I'm their captain, he shouted with a big goofy smile on his face. Rei stared at him for a second before chuckling and asking for another bottle of sake. What they didn't notice was a man walking up to them with a wine bottle in his hand. He was just about to strike Rei when he felt a sharp object to his neck, making him drop the bottle, making it break on contact. Earning the attention of everybody in the bar. When they see who's making the commotion, they see Naruto holding a kunai to the pirate's neck. Sensei, what are you doing? She asked him in a bored tone, only to earn a hard glare from him, making her flinch slightly. Luffy and his crewmates watched but did nothing to interfere with it, but all had their separate thoughts about him. Who is this guy? The first didn't even hear him walk into the bar. Zoro thought, eyeing Naruto spuriously. Luffy was having different thoughts, real different thoughts. I got to have this guy join my crew. He didn't even make a sound when he appeared. The captain thought with a twinkle in his eye that did not go unnoticed by his crewmates. Don't tell me he's going to do what I think he's going to do, Nami thought, placing her palm on her head and shaking it. She then turned back at Naruto and blushed slightly. Well, if he does I wouldn't mind, he does look good, she thought, staring at Naruto before she blushed harder at W. Had she just thought and turned to the ground. Where did that thought come from? I don't even know the guy, he may be someone dangerous, she finished, turning her attention back at Naruto, who still had his kunai at the pirate's neck. Rei, Naruto spoke coldly at her, making her flinch again at the tone of his voice. I told you before, you shouldn't drink too much, it dulls your senses. You should always be aware of your surroundings. This ass right here was about to strike you while you was happily drinking you precious sake, he told her, glaring harder at her while shoving the man the ground and kicking him over to his other pirate crewmates. He turned his head to look at them, daring them to attack him while blasting them with a massive amount of killer intent that filled the whole bar, making ever young there shake in fear and some collapse to the ground. Expect for 4 people. These 4 were looking at Naruto carefully. One was a man with black hair with a black cap over his head who was watching him with interest. Zoro was watching him with a mixture of respect and suspension while also thinking, who is this guy? Luffy couldn't wait to ask him to join his crew. Rei was looking down at he floor with shame, thinking about how she let her love for sake almost made her make a serious mistake. Turning his attention back to Rei, who was still looking at the ground, he softened his features and walked up to her. He placed his hands on her shoulder and smiled at her, causing Nami to blush slightly while still trying to get over the killer intent she felt earlier from him. Rei looked up at him with an sad expression on her face. Sighing, he spoke up to her. Rei, it's all right, I forgive you, he said with a small smile that caused her to smile but soon dropped it after what he said next. For punishment I will be upping your whites by 100, he told her and laughed when he saw her glaring at him while muttering, damn troublesome blondes. He turned his attention to the 3 PLE who was sitting with Rei and saw their shock expressions, or in Luffy's case stars in his eyes. Come on Rei, we have to go see someone, Naruto told her and began to walk out but stopped when he heard Nami call out to him. Hey wait, what's your name? She yelled out at him. He turned to her and stared into her red eyes. He then stopped his staring and walked up to her with the best idea came in mind. This is going to be interesting, Naruto thought as he walked up to her and pressed his lips to her hand. The name is Uzumaki Naruto, and what would be yours? He asked her coolly, earning a blush from her and a smirk from Zoro. Rei looked at him, shaking her head, mumbling about troublesome blondes. Luffy looked at him with confusion before going back to his pie, thinking about ways to get him into his crew. The other people in the bar was watching silently, not wanting to anger the blonde again, while their captain was watching in anger. Nami, my name is Nami, she stuttered while inwardly thinking. Damn it, what the hell is wrong with me? I do not know this guy, but I'm acting like some love-struck girl, she thought with a mental frown while smiling on the outside. That's a pretty name, Yuto said and walked out the bar with Rei behind him. Before they were out of earshot of the bar, they heard loud laughter and sounds of broken glass inside the bar but chose to ignore it. Sensei, where are we going? Rei asked him, yawning very loudly. He turned to her and started walking towards the forest. We're going to see a man named Mont Blanc Cricket, he told her with a big smile on his face, while pulling out a bottle of sake that he had took from the bar. Why are we going to see him, and when did you get that? She asked, pointing at his sake bottle with a betrayed look on her face. Rei, you know a shinobi never reveals their secrets, he explained to her, taking a sip from his bottle. He then stopped and turned to Rei with a sadistic grin on his face. Rei-chan, come here, he told her in an overly sweet voice that sent shivers down her spine. She did as she was told and walked up to him. He placed his palm on her head and focused a large amount of chakra that flowed through her body, making chi glow a faint blue before lifting it a second later. As soon as he pulled his hand away, she fell face first to the ground with a hard thud. She tried to raise her body but found that she couldn't move. She then looked at her sensei, waiting for him to explain. Luckily she didn't have to wait long. I just put a special weights on you. These weights will increase your chakra reserves as well as your speed and strength. Basically what I did was put a steady flow of my chakra into your body. This created a strain on both your chakra and body. This would usually kill anybody else, but since you have a fast healing rate and that you're also a half demon is also a plus. So this won't kill you as it would anybody else, he told her nonchalantly. Think of them as chakra weights that only demons and half demons can handle. Since any ordinary person would die under the intense strain of it unless they were made out of rubber or something weird like that, he told her, waving his arms in the air in exaggerated manner. That might not be that far off, since that guy Crocodile was made out of sand and Smoker was well made out of smoke, he said as an afterthought. He turned his attention back to Rei. Who was still struggling to get back to her feet. Well, it seems we're going to be here for a while. I will be getting some rest over there by this tree. Wake me when you can walk, he said with a yawn. He walked over to the nearest tree, took his fan off his back and placed it near him. He soon sat down and drifted off to sleep, leaving a frustrated Rei to try to get to her feet. Scene change. Mont Blanc Cricket House. 5 hours later. Naruto and Rei were slowly making their way to Cricket's house. An hour prior, Rei had finally got used to her new hell weights, as she put them and had effectively woken up her sensei with a well-placed kick to his gut, making him cry out in pain. But that was an hour ago, and now they were just entering a clearing where they spotted a familiar straw hat ship. Looking around the clearing, they see 3 familiar faces of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. Then they spot 4 unfamiliar faces. One guy had a very long nose with black curly hair with a green bandana and goggles on his head. Another guy had blonde hair with it covering one of his eyes from view, with a cigarette in his mouth. There was woman with raven black hair that went down to her shoulders reading a book. He last person was quite weird. He was a reindeer standing on 2 legs with a backpack on with a strange pink hat on with an white X on it. They soon walk into the clearing, gaining attention of the Straw Hat crew. Nami looked at them with surprise while Zoro looked at them with a raised eyebrow, seeing Rei drag herself into the clearing with a dead look on her face before smirking. Luffy called out to them with a very loud yell. Hey guys, what are you doing here? He shouted, causing everybody there to flinch at his loud voice before he was hit over his head by Nami's fist, causing a small crater in the ground. Nami, that hurt, he whined while in the ground, causing Naruto to laugh at him. Rei walked up to Zoro, said hi, and plopped herself on the ground before falling asleep instantly, causing Young there to sweat drop. Expect Robin, who just looked at her with a raised eyebrow before looking at Naruto and asking what happened to her. Nothing really, I just added some special weights to her, he told her with a wave of his hand before walking up to Nami. Said girl was beginning to get nervous when he began to approach her. The others were watching in interest while a certain cook was watching in jealously. It's nice to see you again, Nami, so would you mind telling me who your friends are and why you're here? He asked her calmly before pulling out another sake bottle that he stole from the bar. Nami looks at him with a raised eyebrow before asking him a question. Hey Naruto, weren't you the one that said, "Sake dull the senses"? Right, she says in an annoyed voice, giving him a death glare. Before snatching it from his hand and drinking it for herself. Naruto just looks at her with an disbelieving look mixed with slight fear. This caused a few people in the crew to raise their eyebrows. While Luffy and Zoro nods their head in understanding who was at the bar at the time. Yeah, I did say that, but that was only meant for her, he says, panicky, pointing at the sleeping Ray. Plus she focuses her whole attention on the sake while drinking and doesn't pay attention to her surroundings. That's very bad for a shinobi, he explains, more calmed down but eyeing the sake carefully. The others squinted their eyebrows in confusion and Usopp decides to ask him the next question. What's a shinobi? He asked, getting the attention of Naruto before bowing his head quickly before adding, sorry about that, the name is Captain Usopp. He tells him with great enthusiasm, striking an heroic pose. Naruto stares at him, then turns to Nami, who is shaking her head at his stupidity. Well, a shinobi is basically a ninja who specialize in assassinations, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. Before you ask, I'll explain what they are, he explains quickly, seeing Usopp about to ask another question. Ninjutsu relies on chakra and, most of the time, hand seals. Unlike genjutsu where everything is an illusion, anything with ninjutsu is quite real. Here, let me show you, Naruto says, walking to a tree and holding out his hand to it. The others watch in silent fascination, well, not all of them, as Luffy and Usopp is jumping in excitement as he starts to gather a ball of chakra in his hands and slamming it into the tree. Rasengan, he shouts, snapping the tree in half. He looks back at them and sweat drops at their reaction. Robin had dropped her book. Nami was looking on in awe. Zoro and Sanji eyes widened slightly. But what made him sweat drop was Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper's reaction. They were all shouting, wow, and, cool, he's strong, or, Naruto, that was amazing, with their eyes wide and running around shouting whole bunch of nonsense. While this was going on, Rei was still silently sleeping with a little drool coming out of her mouth. Okay, that was a seal-less jutsu, now let me show you one that takes seals. Naruto forms a single seal and calls out, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and in a puff of smoke 3 clones appear next to him. He gets the same reactions as before, but with Robin walking up to one of the clones and touching it. These are real clones. How do you accomplish something like this? She asked him with a raised eyebrow. Sorry for not introducing myself earlier, I'm Nico Robin. He nods his head to her and begins his explanation. Chakra is a combination of spiritual energy and physical energy. Without chakra, the human body or animal will not be able to live. With the use of chakra, I am able to use the techniques I have shown you earlier, he tells them, seeing them nod their heads in understanding. Nami decides to speak up. Naruto, can anybody learn how to use chakra? Shish, he asked him with a little twinkle in her eye, thinking of all the things she would be able to do with it and steal. Naruto sees the twinkle but thinks nothing of it. No, not everybody can do it. If you have not used chakra before, it would forever be locked in you unless somebody forcibly open your chakra pathways. That is why we learn to use chakra at an early age. The oldest you can go without act. You ally using chakra is 14 without having it forcefully open. If I were to force open your chakra network, there is a slim chance you may die, and if you survive the painful process, you would be able to use chakra, but I would need to teach you some chakra control exercises like tree climbing and water walking, he explains to them in a serious tone while Nami looked at the ground thinking over what she had just learned. Rei, who had recently woken up, looked over Nami with an calculating gaze but said nothing. Did you say water walking? Chopper asked with stars in his eyes. Naruto nods his head and looks at the other, who had looks of disbelief, while Luffy also had stars in his eyes. My name is Tony Chopper, by the way, he tells him in a happy and proud voice. Naruto smiles at him and walks to where the water was. He begins to take a step before he felt hands on his ankles. He looks down only to be pulled down underwater. What the hell? He shouts before he's pulled under. The others ran over to the water while Sanji, Zoro, and Rei dived in to help Naruto. When they had dived underwater, they saw Naruto being dragged underwater by a blonde man whose head was shaped like a diamond with a funny small hat on. They saw Naruto trying to pry the guy off with his hands, but the guy was seemingly unconscious. The man had a strong grip on Naruto, who was still struggling to get free. Naruto soon lost consciousness after swallowing too much water trying to free himself. Swimming up to him, Rei, Zoro, and Sanji grabbed him and the unconscious guy, then carried them both to the surface. As the Y reached the surface that placed both Naruto and the old guy right next to him on the ground. Naruto was also unconscious and was hardly breathing thanks to swallowing so much water. Nami saw his condition and rushes to his side while Chopper began his work on the other guy. First she places her ear to his chest to find if he was still breathing. She listened carefully and heard he was still breathing but barely. She puts her hands on his chest and starts pumping it all the while in deep inner conflict with her emotions. Why do I care so much? I only met him a few hours ago, she thought to herself, still pumping his chest. Why not? He is cute after all, said her inner subconscious. But it's not logical. I can't fall for someone I don't know. It's like Sanji actually going on a date with me. Impossible, she yelled in her mind while placing her ear back to his chest, then proceeding to pump his chest again. You heard of love at first sight, haven't you? Her subconscious asked her coolly. Sure I have, but only in fairy tales, she told her inner, then added, why the hell am I talking to myself? I'm not some crazy person, she yelled in her mind while shaking her head. Her subconscious went quiet after that while Nami continued to work on Naruto. Seeing that he wasn't coming to, she tilted his head back and pinched his nose. Guess I have no choice, she told herself while she proceeded to give him mouth to mouth. Everybody stopped what they were doing. Expect Chopper to look at the two. Sanji was boiling in anger and jealously, while everybody else stared slack-jaw at what Nami was doing to Naruto. Rei didn't really care but was inwardly smirking, thinking that her sensei was finally going to move on. Then Usopp yelled at Nami while also knocking everybody back to reality. Nami, what are you doing kissing Naruto? He shouted, pointing an accusing finger at her. Nami stopped her mouth to mouth and turned to Usopp. She then gave him the worst glare that he has ever seen her with that made him take a step back. She neatly laid Naruto's head down, never taking her gaze from Usopp's. She then took a deep breath. Everybody was watching her cautiously and took a step back away from her. I am not kissing him, dumbass, I'm giving him CPR. If you say something like that again, I'll kick your ass from here all the way back to your village, she yelled at him with her face red from embarrassment or anger. Nobody could really tell. Usopp hides behind Zoro's leg while said guy was trying to shake him off. Nami was about to give more CPR to Naruto when he came to with a frightened look on his face while mumbling something about crazy-ass dragons. He then turned towards Nami and smiles. Are you the one who saved me, Nami? He asked her as began sitting up. She shakes her head no and explains. No, it was Zoro, Sanji, and Rei. They all dived in the water to save you when that guy had pulled you underwater, she told him, pointing at the unconscious old guy while purposely not telling him the part about her giving him CPR. Well, thanks then you guys, he tells them before lying back down on the ground. Wake me up when that old bastard wakes up, he says, before falling asleep. Amy looks at him for a minute before she walked over to Rei. Rei, can I talk to you for a minute? Nami asked her. Rei looked at her with a bored expression before nodding her head for Nami to continue. I want to learn how to use chakra. Do you think Naruto could help me unlock mine? She asked her with hopeful eyes. Rei stared at her for a minute before looking up at the passing clouds. He could unlock it for you, but I will warn you the process will be painful and there's a good chance that you can die from it, she told Nami grimly, still staring at the clouds. She then turns to face her. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked her, completely serious. Nami nods her head yes and stare up at the clouds as well. Fine, I'll tell him when he wakes up, Rei told her before turning her gaze back to the clouds. Time skip. 3 hours later. Inside the old guy's house, who they later found out was Mont Blanc Cricket, who was diving in the sea to search for the lost city of gold. He told the OT hers there that he was searching for it to prove his ancestor Mont Blanc Norland was no liar, even though he didn't exactly say that. They all knew what he was doing, even if he was trying his best to hide it. The Straw Hat Pirates asked him what he knew about Sky Island. He told them that he never been there, but there was a way of getting up there by taking the knock upstream. But before they could do that, he and his monkey-looking friends who had shown up while he was knocked out had to fix up their ship so they wouldn't crash back down to the surface, because their ship wouldn't be able to take the pressure of the stream. So to celebrate everything, they had a small party with food and even shown some of the gold he found below sea. Everything was going well before Cricket remembered a very RTANT detail that he forgot to mention to them. You guys have to get to the forest fast, he shouted at them, causing everybody to look at him in confusion before his two monkey friends understood where he was coming from. That's right, you guys have to go now and search for the South Bird quickly, the monkey look-alike with long white hair said. If you don't, you won't be able to reach Sky Island. The other monkey said with short hair. What's so special about this South Bird? Naruto asked them, tilting his head to the side. Only with this bird can you reach the knock upstream. South Bird head only points south, and that is where the knock upstream is, the monkey with the white hair said. What kind of bird only points its head south? Ray asked lazily while drinking some sake. The South Bird, the two monkeys shouted in unison. They then proceeded to tell them the only way to identify the South Bird is that its head is always pointing south and that it makes a very weird call. The others stares at them like they were crazy but complied with their search. Luffy and Robin went in one group. Zoro and Sanji went in another, with Sanji complaining about no being with Nami or Robin. Usopp, Chopper, and Ray went in another group, with Ray asking, "Why did I have to search for this troublesome bird?" along the way. The last group was Nami and Naruto, which was pretty awkward for Nami because she didn't know what to think of the blonde man that was to be her partner. With Zoro and Sanji were both walking through the forest at a casual pace while Zoro was running searching for the bird so he could get his Nami away from the blonde menace, as Sanji called Naruto. Would you stop running around already? You're giving me a headache, Arrow Cook. Zoro told him, scowling at the panicking chef. Said chef stop what he was doing and march right up to Zoro, then grabbed him by his collar. What did you say, Marimo? He said venomously at the swordsman who was busy giving him a bored look. Stop running around, Arrow Cook, you're giving me a headache, he told him, grabbing Sanji's wrist and pushing him away from him. What the hell is your problem anyway? He asked him, taking a slight interest in why the perverted cook was acting more batty than their captain on a normal day. I have to hurry and find the bird so I can be with my Nami-chan, he told him with hearts in his eyes, doing a silly dance. Baka, Arrow Cook. Zoro mumbled under his breath and went of searching for the bird again, leaving the perverted cook to his happy dance. With Luffy and Robin. Robin was calmly walking through the forest while Luffy played with a stick, poking it at many different things. They then heard a very weird sound and went in that direction while Luffy tried to get Robin to have some fun. Robin, can we do something fun? This is so boring. Luffy whined, still poking around with his stick until it broke, causing him to pout until he started talking to Robin, who was ignoring his attempts of conversation. Until she finally spoke, seeing that her captain was not going to stop talking unless she did. Why didn't I bring my book with me? She thought, shaking her head. With Chopper, Usopp, and Ray. The three of them were walking bravely through the forest. Well, two of them were, while Usopp just cowered behind Ray at every little sound that he heard. She had a look of pure boredom on her face on the outside, while on the inside she was thinking, this must not kill Long Nose. Must not kill Long Nose, she repeated over in her head in a chant, causing Kira to sweat drop at her container's behavior. Would you get from behind me? I can't concentrate, Ray said with a hint of irritation in her lazy voice. Usopp looked at her with fear in his eyes while he tried to defend himself. No way, Hawk. Have you heard all the noises this place is making? It's creepy, he said, clutching onto Ray's coat with more strength than earlier when he heard a very loud and weird noise. Wah! What was that? He asked with his legs shaking and teeth snapping rapidly. Ray had a look of indifference on her face at his behavior, and when she turned to look at Chopper, he was acting the same way as his long-nosed friend. Sighing to herself, she walks to the direction of the weird loud noise. With Naruto and Nami. Naruto and Nami were both walking through the forest looking for the South Bird. Naruto was walking very slowly, taking in his surroundings, while Nami was trying to search for the bird but couldn't spot it, so she just let the search up to Naruto before she decided now was the best time to ask Naruto about using chakra. Naruto, she called out to him, making her voice sound as firm as she could. He said, not really paying attention. Can you unlock my chakra? She asked, staring at him intently when he stopped to stare at her in disbelief. You want me to do what? He asked, thinking that he hadn't heard right. I want you to unlock my chakra, she repeated with her voice never wavering. Nami, if I do this you may die in the process. That doesn't matter, I live my life as a pirate, my life is always on the line. Look, I'm not going. He stopped when I walked up to him, but before she could do anything they heard a very loud and weird noise. I guess that's the bird, Naruto said quickly, moving towards the sound, leaving a frustrated Nami behind. Damn you, Uzumaki. Nami mumbles before running off after him, thinking of ways to convince the blonde man to open up her chakra network. She will have him do it because she wants to become stronger. She don't want the others to protect her or her running away from fights any longer. Sure, she has her new Kleem attack, but the thing is pretty much useless unless she used certain combinations with the right weather ball. She could use the staff with no problem, but she would have to use lots of distractions for the time needed to perform her staff moves, and in that time she would probably already be dead if her opponent was faster than her. Shaking her head from her thoughts, she continued to run towards the weird sound that she somehow knew that was coming from the south bird. She stopped when she saw Naruto running back towards her with over 100 bees chasing after him. She soon followed after him, screaming the whole way, and she could have swore she heard identical screams coming from different parts of the forest. Time skip. 1 hour later. After the group had finally captured one of the south birds after going through many bug bites, bee stings, rolling rocks and so much more, they made their way back to Cricket's house only to find him and the monkeys were unconscious in their own blood. Acting quickly, Chopper rushed to the scene and checked their pulses to see if they were still alive. When he found out that they were, he bandaged them up and lied them down on their backs. Cricket was the first to come to, and they asked him to tell them who did this to him, but he wouldn't tell them, saying how it was his business. They soon took notice that his gold was gone, and Zoro discovered who did by pointing to pirate symbol that Luffy recognized as Bellamy's. Enraged, Luffy was about to seek revenge when Nami told him that he couldn't go because they had to go to Sky Island in a few hours. Luffy told her not to worry and that he would be back as soon as possible. He soon took off, but not before Ray took off after him on the request of Naruto. Scene change. Jaya docks. A lone man was standing at the docks relieving himself because he was so drunk he couldn't find the restroom. When he was finished, he was on his way back to the bar when a stack of wanted posters landed in front of him. Deciding to look through them just for the hell of it because he nothing else to do than go to the bar, he looked through them. He was looking for about 5 minutes before he came across some familiar faces. Nara Ray, the Shadow Phoenix. A picture of Ray looking behind her, showing the white phoenix on the back of her white trench coat. Bounty 110 million belly. Uzumaki Naruto of the Darkness Flame. A picture of Naruto with his darkness eye activated, holding a dark red flame in his hand. Bounty 125 million belly. Monkey D. Luffy. A picture of Luffy smiling a big smile with his hand on top of his straw hat. Bounty 100 million belly. Roronoa Zoro. A picture of a bloody Zoro face looking off to the side. Bounty 60 million belly. As the man looked over the bounty over their heads, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, so he laughed a little and reread them. His face turned fr. Own giddy to a horrified expression before he made a quick dash to the bar to warn Bellamy. As soon as he saw the bar, he barged his way in, effectively stopping all activity that was happening inside. Bellamy, you have to get out of here, you're in danger, he shouted, making said captain turn his head to look at him with an annoyed expression. What the hell are you talking about? He demanded as he continued to drink his alcohol. You remember those 2 guys we beat up earlier today? He asked as he pulled out the 2 wanted posters of Luffy and Zoro that was tucked under his arms. Well, look at these, he said as he showed them the bounties over their heads. The bar was quiet and nobody made a sound until Bellamy started laughing, making everyone stare at him. Those bounties are fake, you all saw how weak they were. They probably just made them to make themselves look tough so nobody would fight them. Think about it, as soon as someone look at their so-called bounties, they be so scared they'll run away without putting up a fight. He reasoned to them as their fear soon turned into glee as they soon began to drink again, but was soon stopped by the same man. I don't know, Bellamy. He paused as he looked at the other 2 posters in his hands. Bellamy, do you also remember when that little girl was in the bar drinking 1 bottle of sake after another? He asked as he looked back up to Bellamy to see him drinking before slamming his glass on the table, making him and everyone else jump. Yes, I remember her. Damn brat coming her talking about. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink. She would have been killed if it wasn't for that man who saved her, he said as he poured himself some more alcohol. You're still in danger of being killed, look, he said as he showed them the other 2 posters of Naruto and Ray, making him drop his glass in shock. The other people who were holding their glass mirrored him or just spit out their drinks. Soon Bellamy composed himself and told the man what he thought about them. They're weak as well. Those must also be fake who runs away from a fight like they did with bounties like those, he said simply before laughing loudly to himself. I mean, come on, how would a little girl like her have such a high bounty? Shadow Phoenix, what a pretty name for such a little girl, he said, laughing. Soon enough the whole bar began to laugh loudly to expect the one man who was continued to stare at their bounty posters. Soon all laughter stopped when they heard a loud yell. Bellamy, get out here, shouted Luffy, making the man smirk before he walked out the bar with his men behind him. When they exited the bar they saw Luffy standing on top of a building glaring down at Bellamy with hate in his eyes. They didn't notice Ray, who was sitting behind them on top of the bar with a bored expression on her face, until she spoke out to them. Can we hurry and get this over with so I can get some sleep? Ray said lazily, making everyone look at her with wide eyes except Luffy, who already knew she was there. She then yawned before effortlessly jumping off the bar rooftop to the ground in front of Bellamy and his crew. She stared at them lazily before walking up to a building directly across from them. She looked at it as if examining it before she leaned against it and crossing her arms, turning her gaze back at the crowd who had their eyes twitching. I'm only going to ask once return the gold and no one will get hurt, she told them in the same lazy tone as before, making them even more irritated. That's right, return Diamond Head Osan gold you stole, Luffy shouted, earning all the attention back on him, making Bellamy laugh along with the rest of his crew. Soon more pirates began to crowd the area to see what the commotion was about. Among those people was the man with black curly hair with the black cap over his hair, who was watching with growing interest. I'm a pirate, what I steal is mine to keep, he replied, making Luffy glare at him harder and Ray to look at him intently, losing the laziness that were once in her eyes. When the new age comes he won't have a place in it because the crew and I are going to finish him off, he told them with a smirk mocking. Luffy stare at him with barley contain hatred. Bellamy soon turned his attention to Ray, who was staring at him with cold eyes, making him flinch inside. Mani, take the little girl while I deal with this weakling pirate, he told the woman who had curly black hair with slightly dark skin and black eyes. She wore a black and white striped shirt. She wore black pants with a pair of black boots on. Shish. Nodded her head at her captain, then walked over to Ray, who had already pushed herself off the building and made her way to Mina. The name's Mina. I will be your executioner today, she told her with a smirk as she pulled out some trench knives from her pocket and placed them on her hands. Ray stared at her with an even glare before they both disappear from sight. Bellamy crouched down on his hind legs, transforming them into springs as he took off at Luffy like a bullet, making Luffy trip slightly on the building top as he dodged the attack. I'm going to get back Diamond Head Osan gold, just you wait, Luffy thought as he continued to dodge Bellamy and his onslaught of attacks. He will fight for cricket so he can have his gold. The gold he spent time after time diving into the sea to get, to prove that the city of gold exists. He won't let anyone take what he discovered after all his hard work for his dream. He will get back the gold and return it with his 2 rubber hands. Second chapter done. Took a while but I got it. About the whole chakra thing, I read a few fics in the past that mention unlocking chakra and stuff like that, so I decided to use it. I don't remember which fic they were but I do remember one. It was called Naruto of the Shikan. Great story, by the way. The other stuff on it I made up on the spot. And yes, Nami will be learning how to use chakra, but Naruto won't be teaching her anything. She will most likely be learning from scrolls and books on how to use it effectively. No one else on the crew will be learning it for obvious reasons. But just in case no one knows why, I will tell you. Luffy, because he is a rubber man and had eaten a devil fruit along with Robin and Chopper. Zoro, because he wouldn't want any help in getting stronger to accomplish his goals. And Usopp, because he's a chicken and wouldn't want to take his chances with the procedure of having his chakra network open up. Also with the high chances of death he wouldn't even think twice about doing it. So tell me what you think about it and review. The Guardians, Chapter 3. That is all. Take care and check them out. Crossover. My Digimon crossover is still in the planning process along with my WITCH. Naruto. Avatar. The Last Airbender Naruto, and Angelic Layer Naruto crossover. All of these are all my future work which should be coming in a month's time or sooner, who knows, it all depends on how I'm feeling. But look forward to seeing them. Chapter 3. I do not own One Piece, Naruto or the techniques from the show Yu Yu Hakusho that may show up from time to time. Now on with the story and hope you enjoy it. Rei ducked under a punch Mani threw at her and countered with a knee to the offender's stomach. Staggering a little bit, Mani charged at Rei once again, who skillfully dodged every hit she threw at her. She actually found herself letting a little cocky smirk reach her face, until she felt the air in her lungs leave as she was punched in her stomach, sending her to the ground. You shouldn't get cocky, little girl, she said as she blurred from sight and reappeared behind Rei with her trench knives pointed at the girl's neck ready to cut it open. Because it will get you killed, she finished as she cut Rei across her neck only to find that she had cut through a log. Perplexed at this, Mani looks around for Rei only to find the girl leaning against a building staring at her with a bored look on her face. Mani, the pirate crew, and everyone looked at her, then back at the log, then at Rei again with wide eyes. How the hell did you get over there? Mani snarled as she RGED at Rei again only to find herself unable to move. Kajimane no Jutsu success, Rei said with a smirk on her face, but soon dropped it when a cloud covered the area, making her shadow disappear from sight, setting Mani free. She looks up at the sky with an annoyed look. You choose now to appear, she said, a little ticked, but when she turned her attention back to Mani, only to find her charging her once again. Sighing to herself, she pulled out two kunai from her holster on her leg and met Mani charge head on. The two collided as their blades made contact with each other. Both tried to over the other as they tried to gain their victory. So are you going to tell me how you got over there and replaced yourself with that log? Mani sneered as she felt herself being pushed back. That was Kawarimi no Jutsu. It replaces me with anything I desire, she said simply as she looked to her right just in time to see Luffy punching Bellamy and knocking him out. Deciding to end this now, she jumps back a few feet away from Mani. Sorry, but it looked like your captain is down. She paused as she watched Mani look to see her captain unconscious lying down in a small crater in the ground. Shish. E continues once she see that Mani is focusing on her again. And I don't want to waste any more time, so she goes through a few hand seals which confuse everyone there expect Luffy since he saw Naruto perform a simple jutsu back at Cricket's house. She smiles as the clouds begin to show light from the moon as they move away. Alright, one more time, Kajimane no Jutsu, she cried as her shadow stray TCHED trying to catch Mani in it, but she saw it coming and jumped out of its path. Ha, the same thing won't catch me twice, she said with a large smirk on her face as she ran towards Rei, who just smirked in response. As a success, Rei finished as he shadow finally connected with Mani, making her stop dead in her tracks. Mani struggled to set herself free but couldn't move an inch. She turned and glared at Rei with hate in her eyes. Let me go, she shouted as she struggled even more, but soon found herself doing weird movements with her hands. She looks at Rei to find her doing the same movements with her own hands. Soon she stopped as she landed on a single seal and waited to hear what the girl was going to do. Kageyo's no Jutsu, Rei called out as tendrils appear out of Mani's shadow and D began to circle around her, further bounding her. The tendrils stop right before it reaches Mani's neck. Doing one last hand seal that Luffy recognizes, he smiles a big smile when he sees what's about to happen. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and to the amazement and shock to everyone there, a single clone pop into existence. The clone slowly and lazily walks to Mani, whom was struggling even harder to free herself as she watched the younger girl approach her. The clone walks up to Mani and whispers into her ear. Have a nice sleep, she says before she knocks her out and soon pops out of existence, leaving only one Rei left. Luffy smiles at her and gives her two thumbs up. She visibly shudders at that because it reminds her so much of the two green beasts of Konoha. Shaking her head out of her though. Oots, she listens as Luffy demands for the gold back. She watches as a girl with blue hair runs back into the bar and reappears minutes later with a sack and hands it fearfully to Luffy, who only smiles at her. She hears a guy whisper to himself. She didn't quite hear him. She knew she could hear him if she would have tried, but she just figured it was nothing and it would be troublesome if she tried to hear him. "Where are you going?" a man in blue hair yelled as Luffy and Ray began to walk away. Luffy stops in his tracks and Ray follows suit. Luffy lifts a bloody fist in the air and looks back at the guy talking with his straw hat shadowing over his eyes. He suddenly loses that look and points his finger in the air as he gives them all a blank look. "To the sky," he says as he walks off again with Ray following closely behind him. They soon vanish from sight and the 4 bounty papers fly to the feet of a man who watched the whole fight with a smirk on his face. He picks up the bounty paw, purrs and whistle when he sees the price over the kids' heads. He soon walks off with his 2 crewmates following him, but he accidentally bumps into the guy with blue hair. "Hey, watch where you're going," the man shouted in anger. Not liking the tone of his voice, the man slams the man's face fist into the ground. "No, you should watch where you're going. Now let go, boys. I found who our target are going to be," he said as he showed the bounty papers. The men smiled at the numbers and one of the men with a gun hoisted up on his shoulders. Rorano Azoro 60 million belly, Monkey D. Luffy 100 million belly, Nara Ray 110 million belly. And Uzumaki Naruto 125 million belly. Just what exactly did these kids do to get such high bounties? The man asked as he took a closer look at their faces. "Don't know, Van Augur, but rumors say that they all got bounties all in Alabasta," a sickly-looking man on a sickly-looking horse said. "Who care how they got their bounties, Doc Q? This is how we're going to get big in all we have to do is defeat these 4 pirates," a man with purple hair and a mask covering his head said. "Jesus, Burgess is right. We have to defeat them and our plan will be underway," the man with a black beard said as he smiled, a big goofy smile showing off a few of his missing teeth. "Now let's go, crew," he shouted, earning a few glances by a few pirates passing by them. "Right, Captain Blackbeard," they said in unison and marched off to the docks. With Naruto. "I wonder what's taking them so long," Naruto whined as he ate a cup of ramen. The remaining Straw Hat crew turned to him and gave him a glare as he sat there and sulked while eating his ramen while they worked on fixing their ship. "Where the hell did you get that from?" Usopp shouted as he angrily stomped over there to give Naruto a piece of his mind, but soon stopped as Naruto showed him a cup of ramen that he had sitting next to him already done. Usopp looked at it with his mouth watering and looked at Naruto with hopeful eyes, because he was really hungry and he has been working all night on the ship so he could use a break. Naruto nodded his head a little hesitantly, and faster than he could see, Usopp appeared at his side quickly eating his ramen. Shaking his head a little, he begins to eat again and finishes his 3rd ramen cup and went for his 4th only to find it gone. He looks at Usopp, who had already gone back to ship and continued working on it, so that ruled him out. He then hears some slurping and turns to his right to see Robin quietly eating his ramen while sitting on a stump taking a short break as well. He angrily walked over to her and was about to open his mouth to speak, but she beat him to it. "Thank you for the food, it was good," she said quietly and picked herself up and walked back to the ship to help repair it. He blinked once then twice and was about to say something else to her when he felt someone approaching him. He turned his head to see Nami glaring at him. He already had a suspicion on what she wanted and was about to tell her no, but once again before he could speak she beat him to it. "Listen and listen good. I may have only met you yesterday, but I thought long and hard about what you said about how you can possibly open up my chakra network. I want you to do it for me. I want to get stronger so I won't be useless to my crew and so I won't have to rely on cheap tricks that will sooner or later get me or my crewmates killed. I know you said that this could possibly kill me, but I'm a pirate and I will always have my life on the line. I choose this path because it was the only way to fulfill my dream and help my captain reach his dream as well. He wants to be Pirate King, while I want to make a map of the whole world. It may not be the best dream, but it's mine and I will fulfill it one day. I know that on that road I will face dangerous people who will be a hell of a lot stronger than I am, and I just can't rely on my Klima tact. So I ask you once again to please open up my chakra network," she said as she bowed her head a little. She knew she overdid it a little, but she had to get stronger, and this was the only way that she knew that could help her. She just hopes that she didn't go through that whole speech for no reason, because if she did she would be so pissed. She raises her head a little to see Naruto sighing a deep sigh, and she knew she had him. I need you to lay down and take off your clothes. That is all he got to say before he felt a hard punch connect with his head, sending him down to the ground. Damn pervert, Nami said as she kicked Naruto in his side while muttering about neutering all perverts, making him shiver, and Sanji, even though he didn't know why, but just shrugged it off. Naruto slowly got up, only to meet up with the worst glare he had ever seen. This glare made Tsunade's, Sakura's, Ino's, and Temari's glare seem like child's play. Wait, hold on Nami, I didn't mean it like that. It's all a part of the procedure, and I need you to take off your clothes while I draw seals on your body. Oh, and you can leave your bra and panties on, okay? Naruto explained as he got a slow nod from Nami. She slowly began to take off her clothes, only to find everybody there looking at her with wide eyes. Not liking everyone's eyes on her, she turns and glares at them, making them all recoil a little. What the hell are you all looking at? She shouted as she walked off to another area with Naruto trailing behind her. Not wanting to miss his, Robin follows them and appears in a wide open area. She sees Nami lying down on her stomach. While Naruto drew symbols over her body, she watched silently and leaned against a tree as he continued to draw over her. You know, it wasn't nice of you to eat my ramen without permission, Naruto suddenly said, startling both Nami and Robin. Nami moved her eyes slightly to see Robin leaning against a tree with her arms crossed. Robin smirks a little and moved closer to the two. Well, it wasn't nice of you to not offer some ramen, she countered as she watched him draw kanji on Nami's legs at an incredible speed. Naruto quickly went from Nami's left leg to her right, then moved up her back. Robin watched in silent awe as he moved quickly to her left arm and then to her right. Her entire backside was covered in kanji. He told Nami to flip over so he could do the front. But wouldn't the writing smudge if I did that? She asked, and Robin gave him a questioning look because she thought so as well. No, it wouldn't, because I focus my chakra into the ink while I was writing it on your skin, he aid flatly, earning nods from both Robin and Nami. Nami did as she was told and flipped herself over, but gave Naruto a warning. If you try anything funny, I'll rip your hands off, she told him while ying down as she saw the look of fear etched into his face. Robin watched with an amused expression as Naruto sweated bullets and muttered, "Scary women," under his breath. He soon returned to work and wrote kanji all over Nami's body. He began on her left leg, then down to her right one and up to her stomach. He paused for a second as he heard Nami giggle a little when he went over stomach. He then went over her chest as fast as possible because he didn't want to face her wrath for touching her breast. If he would have been looking at Nami or Robin, he would have seen Nami blushing a deep red and Oben blushing a light red as he went over Nami's breast. He then, as quickly and as carefully as possible, went over her arms and placed the last kanji on Nami's forehead, which resembled a shuriken. He then placed the ink and brush to the side and placed his hands on Nami's stomach, causing her to shift a little. He looked at Nami and spoke to her. Nami, that was the easy part, and now it's time for the hard part. You still have a chance to back out if you want, he told her, and she shook her head no and told him that she was ready. He nodded his head and turned his attention to Robin, who watched with calculating eyes. Robin, you must stop anyone who attempts to stop me from what I'm doing. If they stop me during the procedure, the ending result for Nami will not be good, he told her grimly. She nodded her head and Naruto closed his eyes and began to focus chakra into his hands. A blue glow surrounded his hands that soon watched over Nami's body as the seals on her body began to glow. You expect the seal on her forehead that shined a bright white. Nami soon started screaming as he pushed more chakra into the seals on her body. Her screams reached all the way to where the crew, Ed and the two monkey look-alikes were fixing the ship. They rushed to where they heard the screaming, only to see Nami glowing a bright blue and white with Naruto touching her with Robin off to the side. They all rushed towards her, only to find many arms come out of the ground blocking their paths to Nami. What are you doing to Nami? Sanji shouted as he tried to push his way past Robin's multiple arms that kept pushing him back. Robin, why are you just letting him do that to her? He shouted only for it to fall on deaf ears. He cursed and was about to strike Robin's arms only to stop him's. LF because he knew he couldn't hit women. He turns to see Zoro standing there unmoving as he watched Nami scream her lungs out. Sanji marched over to him and pulled him up by his shirt collar so they could see eye to eye. And why in the hell aren't you helping Marimo? Sanji sneered as he tightened his grip on Zoro's collar. Zoro, having enough of Sanji, grabbed his wrist and shoved him to the ground. Shut up, Arrow Cook, and watch, he said cryptically as he continued to watch the ritual process. Sanji simply glared at the swordsman and watched the process continue. He only wished that there was some way that he could help her. Sanji wasn't the only one thinking. That Chopper and Usopp shared those thoughts as they watched their Nakama scream in pain. Naruto continued to push Chakra into the seal's on Nami's body when he saw something happen that wasn't supposed to happen. Black chakra began to leak from his hands and onto Nami, making her scream even louder as the chakra pushed itself across her body. He looked at the seal on her forehead only to see it slowly changing to a dragon. Naruto knew he couldn't stop or Nami would be damaged beyond repair, so he continues to push chakra into the seals. He then thought about the dragon symbol on Nami's forehead and decided to contact his own dragon for help. Shia, what the hell is happening to Nami? Oh, nothing, just decided to give her TWO special gifts to help her become strong. And that was exactly. Not telling you, will just have to find out a little later, my little Naru-chan. Tell me, Shia-chan. Nope, sorry Naru-chan, it is a secret, she said as she cut the connection to the two of them. Naruto tried talking to her again but found that he couldn't reach her. Muttering curses under his breath, he tries to talk to Kyuubi, only to find that he couldn't contact her either. Great, the one time I really need them they abandon me, he thought, shaking his head. He looks at the mark on Nami's forehead only to see the dragon symbol spinning rapidly in a circle. The screaming Nami is doing as unbearably, and he had been doing this for 2 hours straight. He checks his chakra reserves only to feel that he has about half of his chakra remaining. The light on her forehead begins to die down slowly, indicating that the ritual is coming to an end. He looks up to see what everybody is doing only to find Sanji, Zoro, Chopper, Usopp, and Robin remaining. He listens closely to find out what happened to the others only to hear hammers hitting wood and figures they went back to working on the ship. The lights then die down completely, only leaving Nami glowing a slight blue and black. That dies down as well and he feels Nami's crew approaching her. Usopp went to touch her but was struck down by black lighting coming from Nami's body, sending him to the world of dreams. Chopper runs over to him and starts screaming about needing a doctor when his friends tell him that he is the doctor. In response, he gives a sheepish look before getting to work on Usopp, who had smoke coming out of his body. Everyone except Naruto kept a safe distance away from Nami, who fell unconscious as soon as the ritual ended and was snoring slightly while asleep. Naruto looks over to Robin, who looked very tired for using her powers repeatedly that day, and gives her a grateful smile, which she returns before sitting walking over to a tree and falling asleep instantly as she leans against it. Naruto looks over to Nami and gently picks her up, then carry her over to the same tree Robin was sleeping at. He places her near Robin and grabs a scroll from his pocket and looks at the kanji that is written on it. Naruto's sleeping supplies. He goes through a few hand seals and places his hand on the scroll and watches as everything is covered in a giant cloud of smoke. Then over a dozen blankets and pillows appear once the clouds clear. Zoro, Sanji, Chopper, and the revived Usopp watched in awe as the items appeared from the scroll and watched silently as he placed a blanket over the two sleeping women. He then placed 2 pillows behind their heads and walked to a tree close by. He placed a pillow near the tree and grabbed a blanket and sat it down. Naruto looked over to 4 crewmates who watched him do all this and raised an eyebrow at them. You know you can grab a blanket and a pillow to catch up on some sleep, he said simply. Show. PPER quickly went and grabbed himself some sleeping material and placed himself near Robin and Nami. Sorry, but I have to continue helping with Mary, Usopp said as he walked away to go help Cricket with fixing the Going Merry. Zoro and Sanji agreed with Usopp and went to go help him. Naruto sighed to himself and created about 50 clones to go and help them. He then chuckled to himself when he heard them scream and went to sleep. 2 hours later, Nami awoke with a groan as she rubbed her head. She wondered why her body ached all over and remember what happened to her. She had asked Naruto to RCE open her chakra network so she could be more useful to the crew and herself. She looks to her side only to see Robin sleeping peacefully next to her. She gets up and stretch her body some as she hear her bones cracking once she does. But something felt different about her and everything around her. She didn't know what, but she knew something was different about her. She looked around and she felt something strong approaching her. Two things. She turned in the direction she felt the power coming from, and to her surprise both Ray and Luffy slightly winded. Ray stares at Nami in shock because she could feel the chakra rolling of her in waves, and Luffy just stared at Nami for a few seconds with a calculating look before announcing their arrival. "Guys, we're back," he yelled, waking everyone who was sleeping up. They all turned towards Luffy and glared at him. Then they proceeded to beat some sense into him about waking people when they are having peaceful dreams. Once they were done with beating up the captain, they turned their attention to the revived Nami. What they saw shocked them and Naruto even more because he now knew what the gift Shia was talking about. Her hair had changed slightly. It remained its natural orange, but it now had black highlights in them. Her hands had changed into claws and the nails on her hands were black. On her arm was a black dragon tattoo that wrapped all around her arm with black lighting and black flames coming out of it every few minutes. Nami stared at all their faces and her arm in alarm and turns her attention to Naruto, who was staring at her arm in shock. "What happened to me?" she asked while trying to contain her rage and curiosity over her arm. "Well, to put it simple, something went wrong during the process," he told her while scratching the back of his head nervously. "Are you going to tell me what happened, or will I have to make you?" she snarled as black and blue chakra began swirling around her. Thinking quickly of way to calm her down, he came up with none and decided to tell them the truth. "From what I can tell, some demonic chakra washed over your body during the ritual and your body had absorbed the demonic chakra, turning it into your own. As it done that, your body went through a few changes. The claws, hair and the cool dragon tattoo is all because of the demonic chakra that now runs through your chakra network. You see, I also have a dragon tattoo on my right arm and it hold a dragon demon inside of it, and if I'm right, like I know I am, you now have one of my dragon's daughters living in your body, giving you FAW abilities like mine, but you may have more because of that black lighting thing," Naruto explained, earning shock looks from all around. "Wait, dragon demon?" "Yes, I have a dragon demon and a fox demon sealed in my body. The dragon in my right arm and the fox on a seal in my navel." They all exchange glances and Robin speaks up next. "May I see the seal on your navel, Naruto-san?" Robin asked as she studied him carefully. He nodded his head, lifted his shirt and focused chakra throughout his body, showing the seal on his stomach. "That's very interesting. Do you have any books on seals?" she asked. And he nodded and began looking through his bag for the right scroll. He did a few hand seals and placed his hand on the scroll, making a cloud of smoke erupt in the area. Once the smoke cleared, the Taze stared in shock while Robin's eyes had stars in them before she quickly covered it up with her calm look. There were over 50 books on seals surrounding the area, and Robin picked up the first book she saw. It read, "Basic Fuin Jutsu." She grabbed the book and left the area while reading the book. When Naruto saw that, he thought back to his perverted sensei Kakashi, who was always reading one of those Ika books that his other perverted sensei Jiraiya used to write before he was killed during the Sound War. He shook away his thoughts and sealed the books back into the scroll. He walks up to a nearby tree and grabbed over 24 leaves and walks to where Nami is flexing her claws while smiling a feral smile. He shook his head at that and walked over to the smiling Nami. She turns to look at him and snaps out of her claw fantasies when he sees the leaves in his hands. She raises an eyebrow at him, waiting for him to explain why he has leaves in his hand. And why is he in front of her with said leaves? "Nami, you are going to learn how to control your chakra once we go to the Sky Island. So I'm bringing these leaves with us because I doubt that there will be trees in the sky," he explains as he walks off towards the ship where the others were waiting. She soon follows after him and looks at her dragon tattoo on her arm that seemed to be pulsating even more and letting out more bursts of black lighting and fire. She runs towards the ship to see everybody on board, and not really thinking about her actions and letting her instincts take over, she easily jumps on the ship. Our crew stare at her with wide eyes because they never seen her do something like that before, and by the look on Nami's face even she couldn't believe what she just easily did. Shaking her head she KS over to Naruto and he looks at her before turning his gaze to her arm that seemed to be pulsating even more than before. Naruto tells Nami to follow him as he walks to where Chopper was talking with Usopp. Chopper, do you have any bandages I can use? Bandages. Yes, I have some, wait for a few seconds, he said, and he went into a room and exited a minute later with a roll of bandages. He handed them to Naruto, who gratefully thanked him and had Nami hold out her right arm. She did, and he began to wrap it around her arm. Once he did that, he unsealed some ink and a brush, then started writing kanji all over the bandages. As he finished he placed 2 fingers on her arm and focused some chakra into his fingers, and the kanji began to glow gold before disappearing from view. Nami moved her arm around and felt no power being released from her arm any longer, but knew it was only being contained and she would be able to access it when needed. She thanked Naruto and went to lie down as she felt the ship take off. She smiled as she heard her captain yelling goodbye to Cricket. He always was an emotional person, she thought before she fell asleep. With Luffy was on a mission, he said his goodbye to the Diamond Head Osan. He went to look for Naruto and Ray to ask them to join his crew. He would have asked them to join earlier, but he had to first deal with Bellamy. Then Naruto did something with Nami. He thinks they said something about opening her chakra network, but he didn't care as long as she was alright. He soon found Naruto and Ray with Zoro. Naruto was sitting on the reel looking out at sea with a big smile on his face, showing how excited he was about traveling again. This was something Luffy and Naruto had in common, a thrill for adventure. Turning to his right he sees Ray watching the clouds with a content smile spread across her face. Luffy doesn't really understand why she does that when she could be watching the sea, but figures that's just how she relaxes. Turning his head once again he watches as Zoro sleeps peacefully as he sits against the rail of the ship snoring very loudly. He can't but help but sigh, even though he hasn't known Ray for long. He could say that she's lazy, and Zoro matches her in that aspect very easily. They're both good fighters when they need to be, but overall lazy, but he wouldn't voice his opinion. For now anyway. But he had a mission and now he was going to complete it. He walks over to Naruto and taps his shoulder. Naruto turns to him and raises his eyebrow at him. Yes, Luffy, what is it? I want both you and Ray to join my crew, he said simply, and waited for a response. This is what he waited for ever since he first laid eyes on both him and Ray at the bar on Jaya. Yes, all he had to say was yes, and he could have Sanji cook him some food or his personal favorite meat. He watches as Naruto stare at him for a few minutes, trying to make everything seem more dramatic. After about 5 minutes of waiting he turns his head back to the ocean and smiles a wide smile. Yeah, sure, why not, we have nothing better to do, he finally says before turning to Ray. Right, Ray? He asked the girl, who just gives him a bored look before yawning and lying back down on the ground. Right, sensei, she says before instantly falling to sleep. Luffy smiles a big smile and start cheering, making Naruto laugh, as he began to dance around while singing about having new nakama. Soon Chopper and Usopp join him in his dancing around the ship. Sitting on a chair on deck while reading the book she took from Naruto, Robin pauses from her reading and looks at the dancing trio. She can't help but give out a small smile at them before going back to her reading. Sanji exits the kitchen with some drinks in his hands on a small platter. He first walks over to Robin and sets her drink on the small table right next to her. She glances up from her book and smiles at him, making hearts appear in his eyes. He then walks over to the sleeping Nami and places her drink right next to her, and walks over to Ray, who was also sleeping peacefully, and places her drink right next to her. He hears her mumble a thank you, but not sure if she was awake or not, but said you're welcome in response before walking over to the guys and placing the remaining drinks on the ground. He didn't bother putting near them because they aren't women and they could grab their own drinks if they would like some. He walks back into the kitchen and began cooking because he knew sooner or later his captain would be asking him to make food, more specifically meat, to go with his drink. Sanji, meat, Luffy shouted, and Sanji smirked in response because he knew his captain far too well. With Naruto sat peacefully on the rail looking out at sea. He smiled As he saw how endless it looked and turned to look at his side where the monkeys' ships were at. They were escorting them to the knock upstream, and according to what he could hear from their ship they were almost there. 5 minutes later the sky turned dark and day somehow turned to night instantly. Confused by this strange occurrence, Naruto turned to Nami, whom just exited her room. Nami, YD, it suddenly get dark when it's still midday. She looked up at the sky to see a large cloud covering the whole area and smiled. We must be at the knock upstream now because this happened to us once before. Right, so we're at that weird stream, got it, Naruto said with a wave of his hand. He and Nami both heard the monkeys say something about them being in position and they would be a little ways away from them. Naruto unsealed his fan from a scroll and strapped it to his back while Nami just watched as he strapped the giant fan to his back. She was about to speak to him when the arrival of an unexpected guest showed up. Monkey D. Luffy, Roronoa Zoro, Nara Ray, and Uzumaki Naruto, Blackbeard shouted from his raft. With his crew watching so their captain doesn't do anything stupid. The 4 pirates on the Straw Hat ship walked to the railing to see who was calling them while the rest of the crew watched on from the side. Ray had a bored look on her face, but those who were experienced in fighting could tell that she was on her guard even if their distance was so far apart. Naruto just watched but knew he could draw his battle fan if a battle were to start. Luffy was just relaxed and had a look of curiosity on his face. Zoro's face was just one word, serious, and had his hand rested on the hilt of his sword. What do you want? We're about to go to the sky, Luffy shouted from the modified Mary. We want the bounties on your heads, Blackbeard shouted back. What do you want with 30 million? Nami shouted from her spot on the ship. Blackbeard and his crew gave her a Konfu said look before pulling out the 4 bounty posters. I guess you haven't seen your captain's and crewmates' new bounties, Missy. Blackbeard showed them the posters but none of them could see it, so he told them the bounty price over their heads. Roronoa Zoro, you have a 60 million bounty. Zoro smirks. Straw Hat Luffy, a 100 million bounty. Luffy cheers and smiles at his crew. Nara Ray, a 110 million bounty. Ray and the rest of the crew expect Luffy, who cheers for her, goes wide-eyed. And Uzumaki Naruto, a 125 million bounty. Everybody turns to Naruto, who scratches the back of his head while Luffy cheers some more before realizing Naruto and Ray has a higher bounty than him and sulks quietly. The crew and I are here to take you bounties to the Marines, Blackbeard finished. Usopp pulls out a telescope from his hand pouch and see that Blackbeard was telling the truth about the prices on the 4 pirates' head. He's telling the truth, Usopp said quietly while Sanji snatched the telescope from his hand to see if he had a bounty as well, but didn't and went to go sulk into a corner. Nami, Robin, and Chopper turned their attention to Naruto and Ray. If you don't mind me asking, how did you acquire such high bounties for yourselves? Robin asked while putting her book in her back pocket. Yeah, what did you do? Chopper asked with a big smile on his face with stars in his eyes, making Naruto and Ray look at him funny. So what's the story? Nami asked with her arms crossed over her chest. Have you heard of Alabasta? Ray asked while never turning her attention back to Blackbeard and his crew. We have. Luffy beat Crocodile there, Chopper said quietly. Naruto looks confused at the name before realization dawns on him. Oh, that sand guy, the first beat him too, Naruto said with a snap of his fingers. Luffy, who just got done sulking and returned to his normal cheery self, stares at Naruto for a brief second, trying to absorb the information before going slack-jaw like the rest of the crew expect Robin, who eyes widen slightly. You fought Crocodile but I already beat him, Luffy said with a confused look. I'm not saying you didn't. You see, I think he was locked away in a ship before I accidentally set him free. Naruto said sheepishly. How did you do that? Usopp said, joining the conversation. I don't know, it was a long time ago, but I do remember being surrounded by over 600 Marines and some weird smoke guy, he said while scratching his chin thoughtfully. You ran into Smoker, Nami shouted, making Naruto wince but said nothing about how loud her voice is because if she was anything like Sakura it wouldn't end well for him. And beat him too. The others stared at him with wide eyes except Robin, whose eyes were still only slightly wide. They almost always ran into Smoker and never managed to win in any of their confrontations. Instead of them beating him, he always almost beat them. That's why they always ran when he came around, because they had no way of fighting him. Every time they tried to fight him he just turns into smoke so their strikes go right through him, so how did Naruto beat him? These were the thoughts that were running through the Straw Hat crew's mind. How did you win? Luffy asked, for once not sounding overly cheerful. Naruto said nothing and just pointed to his fan on his back. They were about to ask more questions when the ocean started shaking. Blackbeard and his crew, who were quiet through the whole Naruto's whole story, looked on confused at what was happening before deciding it would be best if they left for now. The monk, Ice, shouted at the Straw Hats and told them the knock-up stream was starting. They also told them that they would meet again one day, so they better take care of themselves. The crew waved goodbye and, not too soon after the knock-up stream launched, Nami started barking out orders, taking charge of the ship while holding tightly onto the rail so she wouldn't get blasted off by the force of the stream. The crew did what they were told and they sailed safely up into the clouds, disappearing from sight. Blackbeard and his crew watched silently on their broken raft as the Straw Hats vanished into the clouds. "Well, Marshal, what do we do now?" Doc Q asked as he looked over to his captain. "We wait for them to come back down, and when they do we'll capture them," Blackbeard said with a big smile on his face. "Well, until then let's go back and fix our raft, then we can travel around," he told his crew and left the scene. With Straw Hat crew. Amazing, was all Luffy could say as he stared at all the height clouds around him with a smile on his face. The crew all watched in silent awe before Luffy broke the silence with a loud yell. Next stop, Sky Island. Chapter 3 is finally complete and over with. I finally gave Nami the ability to use chakra and a few other things. Let's see if you all could figure out what 2 gifts Shia gave her. I will list out everyone's special abilities and powers down below. Uzumaki Naruto. Special ability: Darkness Eye, Demon Form, and Half Demon Form. Abilities: Darkness Flame Techniques, Ninjutsu, and Fuin Jutsu, Sealing Jutsu. Weapon: Battle Fan, Kunai, Shuriken. Notes: Has 2 demons sealed inside him, the Kyuubi no Kitsune and Shia, a Dragon Queen. Nara Ray. Special ability: Family Jutsu, Flame Manipulator, Demon Form, and Half Demon Form. Abilities: Shadow Techniques, Ninjutsu, Genjutsu, and some Fuin Jutsu. Weapons: Kunai, Shuriken. Notes: Is a reincarnation of Gobi, the 5-tailed phoenix, whom name is Kira. Kira's consciousness lives on in Ray for an unknown amount of time. Monkey D. Luffy. Special ability: Rubber Man. Abilities: Stretching Weapons, None. Notes: Always seem to be wearing a straw hat. Roronoa Zoro. Special ability: None Abili. Ties: Sword Fighting Weapons, 3 katanas. Notes: One of his katanas is from his dead childhood friend Kuina, who shared the same dream as him to become the best swordsman in the world. Katana name is Wado Ikimanji. His other swords names are Sandy Kidetsu and Yubashiri. Nami. Special ability: Unknown. Abilities: Darkness Flame Techniques, Dark Lighting Techniques. Weapons: Klima Tact Bow Staff. Notes: Have no training with her abilities, so if used may cost life. Also may have a dragon princess living in her body. Also can tell when a weather change is about to happen by the slightest shifts in the air. Usopp. Special ability: None Ability, Running, Sniping. Weapons: Slingshot and various others. Notes: Has an excellent shot with his slingshot and is a very fast runner and has a high tolerance for pain. Tony Chopper. Special abilities: Reindeer Human Hybrid, able to change into 6 different forms. Abilities: Highly Intelligent, Doctor, and is able to make medicine which help him with his special abilities. Weapons: None. Notes: A great doctor who is really a reindeer who ate of the Hito no Mi, human fruit, to change into a talking reindeer and taught in the art of medicine. Sanji. Special ability: Martial Artist of the style, Red Leg. Abilities: Super Strength, Speed, Endurance. Weapons: None. Notes: Would never hit any woman and would most likely get kill. D if his opponent ever happens to be a girl. Nico Robin. Special ability: Can spread multiple replications of her body parts from her body, on other objects or on other bodies. Ability: Can replicate her body parts up to 200 times, Stealthy. Learning Fuin Jutsu. Weapons: None. Notes: is now reading up on Fuinjutsu. It is not yet known on how she will be able to do it, but not much is known about Robin and her abilities. Well, that's over with, and Nami is going to get strong and will be one of the strongest in due time, but no time soon. Now, as some of you may have realized, I left Nami's special abilities unknown. Why, well, I'm kind of in a standstill. I plan on giving her a dojutsu so she will be able to handle the darkness powers of flame and lighting. So do you have any ideas on what kind of Ojutsu I should give her? Because if not, I could just give her the Jaganai, well, a modified version of it, but still the same as the one Hiei uses from Yu Yu Hakusho, something I do not own. So if you have any ideas on a dojutsu for her, let me know, because if not, I'll just give her the modified Jaganai. Remember to review to tell me what I can do to improve and how you like or not. Well, until next time everyone, bye. Chapter 4. I do not own Naruto, One Piece or Yu Yu Hakusho or any of the elements in the anime or manga. Let's not do that again, Rei said as she let go of the railing of the ship. She had enough of the White Sea the moment they were attacked by the tribal man. She rubbed her jaw, remembering what happened to her. 10 minutes after arriving on the White Sea, the Straw Hat Crew as attacked by a tribal man carrying a bazooka. He had quickly dispatched of Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro. Then, to the surprise to both Naruto and Rei, the same happened to them. Before the man could finish them off, the crew was saved by an old man wearing a knight's armor while flying on a pink bird wielding a lance. The man quickly saved the crew from the deranged tribal man. The old man introduced himself as the Sky Knight and told them to call him whenever they needed help by blowing a whistle he had given them. He also told them that he will only come to their aid once and only once. After wandering sailing around for a while, they found the entrance to Skypia. At the entrance they saw an old lady asking for some money. When they asked how much, she told them a high amount of money, but so told them that they didn't have to pay. Nami had made a sigh of relief and they sailed on, unaware that the lady had taken pictures of each of their faces except for Rei, because she was lying down staring into the sky. However, she soon got to her feet when she felt the ship moving incredibly fast, while making twists and turns which made her grab onto the ship's rail. She could have used Chakra to stay put where she was at, but she was still a little groggy to think about using it. After the whole roller coaster experience, they finally came to a stop a little way from an island. This is where we find the crew now, staring at the island with a little suspicion, or in Luffy's and Naruto's case, glee. Naruto jumped off the ship and landed on the cloud, which felt like water. He tested the cloud and shrugged his shoulders while walking towards the island without a care in the world. Luffy followed after him, actually landing in the water, but since they were close enough to land, he didn't sink and chased after Naruto. They seem eager to get to the island, Nami said as she stared at the two with a sweat drop forming on her head. Sensei always did have thing with traveling to new places, Rei said with a shrug as she jumped off the ship, following her sensei's example. Wait for me, Nami said as she also jumped off and landed in the water while running after Rei. I wonder if there will be any beautiful angels here, Sanji said with tears in his eyes as he followed the others. Robin said nothing but smiled and placed her book in her pocket while following the others' example with Usopp right behind her. Zoro looked over at Chopper before sighing and picking up the reindeer and putting him on his shoulders. He then jumped off the ship and walked calmly towards the island, with a smiling Chopper on his shoulders. This place is nice, Naruto said with a smile as he walked over the cloud in a daze. He then stuffed his hands in his pockets where he felt the leaves he had stuffed in earlier. He then remembered that he had forcibly opened up Nami's chakra network, and he knew that helping her control it now than later would be a good idea. He spotted her sitting on a cloud staring at Luffy, who was trying to take a bite out a weird-shaped fruit. He then looked around and noticed that there was only that one tree there. He sighs and figured that he should just have her do the water walking exercise first. Nami, we're going to start your chakra control exercises now, he said as he approached the navigator. She turns towards him and a smile etches upon her face quickly. So what am I going to learn first? She asked as she stood up and faced her temporary sensei. Water walking, or in this case sea cloud walking, Naruto said as he released his fan from his back and placed it in front of him to lean on slightly. She nodded her head and walked to the sea cloud, but before she could go any further, Naruto called out to her. Before we begin, I'm going to show you the hand seals required to focus chakra and use jutsu, Naruto explained. Alright, fine. Hurry and show me so I can start walking on water, she said with a frown. Naruto showed her the seals and for the next 20 minuets she practiced them. Okay, now put your hand in the seal of the ram and try to summon your chakra, Naruto said as he backed away from her. Naruto knew she had a lot of chakra. He just needed her to summon it and then they could begin training. He watched as Nami closed her eyes and put her hands in the ram seal. What's Nami doing, Naruto? Chopper asked as he walked up to Naruto and watched as Nami tried to summon her chakra. Nami's is trying to summon her chakra. Once she does we can begin her training, he said as he looked over to Rei, who was sleeping on a soft cloud. Robin walked over a few minutes later with the Basic Fuin Jutsu book in her hand. Naruto-san, this book is fascinating. May I have the second book? I'm just about finished with this one, she said, eyeing Nami with interest. Naruto was about to reply when he felt a pulse of power coming from Nami. Robin felt it also and her eyes widened slightly. Luffy, Sanji, Usopp and Zoro all quickly ran over because they too felt the pulse of power. Rei quickly woke up from her nap once she felt Nami's chakra levels spike and quickly walked over to her sensei and watched as blue, black and white chakra swirled around Nami's form. Naruto watched on with his eyes widening in surprise. He couldn't believe that Nami was putting out that much chakra. Her chakra is now bordering high Chunin and low Junin now. She shouldn't have this much chakra. No, now she's bordering mid Junin and high Junin level chakra. Alright, her chakra finally stopped rising, but how does she possess so much chakra? Naruto thought as he watched the blue, black, and white chakra swirl around Nami chaotically. Wait, white chakra. Chakra is normally blue and Demon's chakra is normally red or yellow in Gaara's case. So why does she have white chakra? It could be anything, Naruto-kun. But I feel a great power within that girl, Kyuubi said from within her cage. Do you either of you know what it is? I know it has nothing to do with the gift I gave her, Shia said, watching with a slight smile as she watched Nami's chakra. What gifts did you give her, Shia? I told you before, Naru-kun. It's a secret. Stop playing games, Shia, and tell him. Mia snarled from her cage. Nope, he'll just have to find out when the girl awakens it, Shia said in a sing-a-song voice before cutting her connection with Naruto and Kyuubi. I'll beat the answers out of her, Mia said with a sadistic laugh before also cutting her connection. Naruto shook his head and told Nami to stop summoning her chakra. Unknown to the Straw Hat crew, two people felt the power coming off of Nami. One was a girl around the age of 13. She had red hair with matching red eyes. She wore a brown shirt with black shorts and matching black shoes. The odd thing about her was the pair of small angel wings on her back. She wore a red shirt with white shorts and a pair of white sandals on. She felt the power coming from Nami, and to put in frankly, it frightens her. The power she felt coming from her could even rival that of Enel's, but her power was uncontrolled, the team could tell. She would most likely be useless in a fight, if she couldn't control it. But the girl herself wasn't any better in fighting. Sure, she was from a tribe of warriors, but she never really fought. She would love to and show them that she could be strong as well. But she only carried a burned blade, but she had never really used it before. She absently wondered what she was going to do with her life. She wanted to become a strong warrior like Lackey or Wiper. Even though she is sort of afraid of him. She let the verth fall through her hand as he picked some up from her small carrying bag. But that power was unbelievable. I never felt anything like it before. I better go and tell Wiper. I so don't want to deal with him right now. She sighed in frustration as she ran off to tell Wiper about the power she felt a few minutes ago. The other was a man who sat lazily on a red couch while eating an apple high above Skypia and upper yard. The man was Enel, the current god of Skypia. He too felt the power coming off the girl but thought nothing of it. Enel knew that with his power he could easily destroy the girl and all of her little friends. Yes, he admits that what he felt was powerful, but it was nowhere compared to his own power. Then a thought, a sudden though, hit him. Maybe I can have her join me. I can always use a wife when I become the ruler over Fairy Verth, he thought with a slight smile as he took another bite out of his apple. Cloudy Beach. Alright, Nami, that was great. Now I want you to put your hands in the ram seal again and focus your chakra to your feet and attempt to walk on the cloud water stuff. Just know that if you put too little chakra into your feet, you'll fall in too much and you will go sailing into the sky, he said as he watched Nami try to walk on the water, but fell in immediately after putting her first foot on it. Lucky for her, she was still on the shallow end of the water and hasn't reached the deep end yet, so only her legs got wet. She tried it again and manages to stay on top of the water for 20 seconds before falling in again. The crew watched as Nami attempted her third attempt to walk on water and managed to stay on top of the water without her feet wavering a bit, but when she took her few steps out further into the water she fell in. She continued to do this for the next 20 minutes and that's when they heard someone playing music making Nami fall into the water again. All turned to where they heard the music playing from and saw a girl who looked around their age playing a harp. She had long blonde hair and she had her hair done up in a strange fashion. She wore a pink dress with black designs on it with small angel wings on her back. She also had a gray fox standing next to her side. She had introduced herself as Canis and welcomed them to Skypia. She also told them many things about the place including her cloud fox, Shu. She explained them all about the area and various other things, and when Nami told them about the strange machine she and the crew had found, she told them it was a waver. Canis explained that wavers moved by the power of a breath dial, but Nami's was powered by a jet dial. Since hers was broken, she offered to have her father fix it back at the house and she only had to bring it up. However, since she had already had her own waver down with her, Luffy attempted to ride it only to lose balance and fall into the water a second later, almost drowning, and was lucky to be rescued by Zoro, who was just tempting to leave him to drown due to his stupidity. After he was rescued, Nami tried it next and the crew was surprised when she was riding it expertly, and Canis told them that the waver was hard to control and it took years to master it and that she was impressed with Nami's talent. Nami told them that she was going to ride Arrow for a while longer and would meet up with them later. Soon after that they all reached Canis's house and met her father Pagaya, and he agreed to fix the waver for them to use back down on the Blue Sea. They talked for a while and mentioned that they didn't pay the fee to get into Skypia, and saw that both Pagaya and Canis stiffened slightly before talking again like nothing had happened. Naruto and Zoro had narrowed their eyes in suspicion along with Robin, but had said nothing about it. They mostly talked about the different dials that they had and how they were used. All the talk about the dials greatly interested Naruto, Sanji, and Usopp a great deal, and was planning on getting some before they left Skypia. However, elsewhere Nami was not having such a good time and had just witnessed get fried by a huge bolt of lightning after he had told her about the four priests, and to have Nami tell him family that he was sorry and that all the other workers who had worked for God were killed. Nami left Upper Yard in a hurry to tell her crew that they had to leave before they evoked God's wrath. She arrived a little while later to see Ray laying on some cloud staring up at the sky with a content look on her face. She told her what she had saw and heard from a tone dial about not paying the fee, and when they set foot on Upper Yard they were killed by the four priests. Ray was intrigued by this and led Nami up to Canis's house. Once they reached the house, Nami told everyone what had happened back by Upper Yard and told them that they should leave right away. Usopp, Luffy, Sanji and Naruto immediately protested that idea, but with a quick beating they changed their minds in an instant. Nami, Ray, Zoro, Chopper and Robin all headed back to the ship. While Sanji prepared a pirate bento for Luffy, Naruto, Ray, Nami, and Robin, and asked Pagaya for some recipes and a few heat and flame dials for him to use for when they went back down to the Blue Sea. Pagaya agreed, and he gave him a few dials and a few breath dials as well from him to use just in case anything happened to his kitchen or he had to cook while away from Mary. What none of them noticed was that Canis had pressed a Devi CE in her hand and pressed a button on it, alerting a speedy shrimp to take Mary away towards Upper Yard. When the crew saw Mary being taken away by a giant crab, they ran after it and saw that the ship was heading towards Upper Yard. Luffy then asked if they knew any way to getting to Upper Yard, and Canis nodded her head yes, and they soon headed off into town where they could get them a boat for Hem to use to get them to their destination. The crew watched as the Skypians all backed away from them and looked at them in fear. Naruto even spotted the annoying white berets were following them as well. They had to fight them earlier on in the day, but Naruto wouldn't actually call it a fight. He would call it more of a one-sided fight in the Straw Hats' favor, but that's in the past and they were being followed. They soon reached the docks and Konoha finally told them the truth about why their friends had been kidnapped. She told them how she had to do it and if she didn't both he and her father would have been killed by Enel. She also told them that Enel knows everything that happened there and she was sorry for betraying them. The crew was pretty pissed, but not because she betrayed them. No, it was because she told them and now she was endangered and no sooner had they yelled at her a light shined in the sky. This alerted all the Skypians that Enel was passing his judgment on Konoha and the pirates. Luckily for them they all got out of the way in time and Konoha was saved by the Sky Knight Gonfall. Gonfall then took off with Konoha to his place, while the remaining Straw Hats traveled towards Upper Yard in a crow boat. Upper Yard. Once the speedy shrimp dropped going merry off at the sacrificial altar in Upper Yard, the kidnapped crew tried to find a way off of it. Zoro had wanted to swim across, but that idea was soon dropped when many sky sharks appeared and ate a south bird that had fell in the water. Now here they were trying to figure out a way to get off the altar without becoming shark food. Nami paced across deck with a frustrated look on her face. She had already told no one to blow the whistle that Gonfall had given them or she would be forced to kick their asses. Zoro, who had been leaning against the rail, glared at her. "Nami, would you stop pacing around? You're really getting annoying," he said with a frown on his face. Nami stopped in her pacing and glared at him. She did not need Zoro's remarks at the moment. She already was feeling frustrated and she had a major headache for reason unknown to her and it was really pissing her off. She had felt fine earlier while riding on the waiver. But as soon as she got back to the white beach her head started pounding and her arm began pulsating with power once again. The headache only felt like a small tick, but now it felt like someone was pounding on her head with a 30-pound mallet. The pain was getting too much for her and she staggered a bit, while holding her head. Zoro saw this and was looking quite concerned for Nami at this point. "Nami, you feeling all right?" he asked, gaining the attention of his crewmates. Nami heard Zoro call her, but she couldn't bring her body to move. She slowly lost feeling in her legs and she collapsed to her knees, but catching herself with her hands before she crashed face first into the ground. Her vision slowly blurred and before she knew it she passed out and her world went dark. Nami's mindscape. Nami opened her eyes in a daze. She slowly got to her feet and found herself in a large grove filled with mikan. She grabbed one and took a bite out of it and was surprised how much the mikan she just tasted tasted like the ones her mother Bellamy. She grabbed another one and slowly walked around the area to find where she was at. She wondered where her crew was and what she was doing in the middle of a grove of micans. She knew they wouldn't abandon her, at least she hoped they didn't, because if they did she would literally rip them to shreds with her claws. She blinked and wonders why she would think of thoughts like that about her crew and just shook it off and decided to figure what was the last thing that she had remembered. First, I see some GU. Why get killed by God while riding on the waiver? Then I told everyone about what I saw and demanded that we left right away. After that we got on. Mary and myself along with Robin, Ray, Zoro and Chopper was carried by some weird thing towards the one place I didn't want to be. Then my headache that I had earlier increased to unimaginable pain and Zoro said something to me and then everything went dark after that. She said as she walked into a clearing where she saw a 3-story white house with a black maple door. Curious, she walked up to the door and knocked on it. She waited for a few moments before trying again. Getting frustrated, she was about to start banging on the door, when said door suddenly opened, revealing herself. But this Nami looked entirely different. Instead of orange hair and red eyes, she had black hair with black eyes. She wore a form-fitting black kimono with the yin symbol from the yin and yang emblem on the front of her kimono. Her eyes were cold and filled with nothing but contempt when she stared into Nami's eyes. "So you finally decided to grace us with your presence, Yang-chan," the dark Nami said with a smirk on her face. "What do you mean us? And why did you call me Yang?" the light Nami asked with a confused look on her face. "That will all be explained when you move your ass inside this house," she said, walking in without caring if the light Nami followed her in or not. Nami blinked a few times before walking in after her, but not before she closed the door behind her. She walked through the house and passed by a mirror as she tried to locate where the dark Nami went to. She paused in front of the mirror when she saw her appearance. It was changed and she was surprised when she hadn't noticed it before. She no longer had black highlights in her hair and it was now its normal shade of orange again. Her eyes were still their normal red and she noticed that she no longer had her claws anymore. She also saw that she was wearing a similar dress as the dark Nami. Except her kimono was white and she had the yang symbol in the middle of it. She wondered why her appearance changed, but just shrugged it off for the time being and went to go find the dark Nami. She found her 5 minutes later sitting on a couch kissing a blue-skinned woman and slowly broke apart from each other when the light Nami walked into the room. Nami stared at the two of them with a blush on her face and quickly fought it down to stare at the blue-skinned woman. She had long silky black hair that went a little past her waist. Her golden eyes that had slits in irises stared seductively into Nami's red eyes and she felt herself getting weak in the knees as she stared into them. The woman wore a blue kimono that hugged her body showing off her breast that Nami felt herself staring intently at. She had a slit going down from her thigh to her bare blue feet showing off her silky smooth legs. She slowly got to her feet and made her way towards Nami and Bef. Or Nami could react. She found herself kissing the blue-skinned woman. Her mind ran a mile a minute as the kiss continued on and surprisingly she found herself slowly kissing back. After 5 minutes of kissing the woman pulled back and went to sit down back on the couch where the dark Nami was watching everything with a smirk on her face. Nami was in shock for a few moments before she stared at the two with a little anger rising in her, but not much for some reason. What the hell was that? Where the hell am I? And who the hell are you two? She asked with narrowed eyes as she sat on the opposite couch. Then the two strangers and trying her best not to think about the kiss she had just received and returned. The blue-skinned woman grinned a seductive grin at the glaring Nami. I'll answer all your questions in order, Nami-chan. The woman said, still smiling a seductive smile towards the slightly blushing Nami. What you just experienced was a very wonderful kiss from one sexy dragon. She giggled as she saw Nami's blush darken. We are currently inside your mindscape and you are currently in my domain, which is basically this house and the area surrounding it, except for the grove of mycons out there. That would be your domain and your house is on the opposite side of the field, she explained while staring at her claws while not telling her about the third domain within her min. And decided that she need to master her power first before she went to her other guest. You can call me Miu and I'm the dragon that was sealed inside you when you went through the chakra ritual. She explained. Then the dark Nami took this time to introduce herself when she saw the light Nami stare at her with her arms crossed over her chest. And I'm your demon side or your dark side and you can just call me Yin. She said as she leaned her head against Miu's shoulder. Nami sat in silence for a few minutes processing everything she had just heard and finally spoke after 5 minutes of silence. So I have a dragon demon sealed inside of me like Naruto had with his 2 demons. Both Miu and Yin nodded their heads simultaneously. I also have a dark side that I never knew about and she called herself my demon side. Once again they nodded their heads in unison. And I'm apparently inside of my mind. They once again nodded their heads. So why am I here? She asked in a calm voice. That surprised both Miu and Yin because they thought for sure that Nami would blow a gasket at the two of them or tell them how unbelievable how their story sounded. They just shook their heads at and Miu decided to explain the situation. I brought you here to explain the why you passed out and why Yang is here, okay? So don't interrupt me or ask any questions until I'm done, okay? Miu said as she fixed Nami with a stern glare. Nami nodded her head wordlessly and waited for the dragon to start explaining. As you may have noticed, your body had gone through some changes. Like you growing yourself a set of claws and hair changing slightly. There is a reason for that and it's because you had gained the traits between this girl and I. That was not supposed to happen and ever since Entered your body I've been recreating it with the help of Yin here. Yin is actually your demon half and your dark half. You see, when my mother transferred me into your body she gave you a few things your body couldn't handle. She gave you the power over the darkness and mortal flame with the power over dark lightning. But that wasn't all she gave you. She also gave you the Jagan, the predecessor of the darkness eye Naruto possesses. Why she gave you this I have no idea, but I don't know that your body couldn't handle all that power and I had to alter it so it could. I will have to turn you into a demon, well a Hanyo. But a demon nonetheless to handle the power you were given. In time you will become a full-fledged demon, but for now you will become a Hanyo. But before the process could go underway I had to shut down your body and reset it, and this is how Yin was born. She is all of your negative, well almost all of your negative emotions and your demon half. You are currently the yang and human half, and you both must become one once again so you can handle all the power your body holds. Now do you have any questions? She asked, now having finished her explanation. What are the Jagan and darkness eye you spoke of? The Jagan is a demonic eye and is very dangerous and powerful. It amplifies all of your abilities and allows you to summon both the hell fires of Makai and the fires of the human world. This eye also allows you to see fast movements that wouldn't be seen by the natural eye. It gives you a few psychic abilities like hypnosis, telepathy, and remote viewing. Just in case you don't know, remote viewing allows you to find or see a person or place if you know what you're looking for, even if you are 1,000 miles away from the person or thing you're trying to find. You would be able to hear and speak with them with your telepathic powers. Now the darkness eye is the weaker form of the Jagan. It has almost the same abilities as the Jagan, except that it doesn't have any psychic abilities. She said while rubbing her arm. She then remembers something important and de-iced to tell her now so she wouldn't forget. Also you should know that you should never insult Jagan eye, and make sure you tell your friends that as well when you leave this place, she said in a serious tone. Why shouldn't I or anyone insult the eye? Because the Jagan has a mind of its own. And when it's insulted, the person who insulted it will be killed no matter who they are. Friend or foe, they will die, and the Jagan would take over your body if it had to, just to have its revenge on the one who insulted it. So I advise you to cover it up with this cloth, she said as she walked over to Yang and handed her a long white cloth that had a strange feeling coming from it. How am I supposed to use it? If it's inside of my mind. Simple, just picture the cloth and it will appear in your hand in the outside world. Now enough questions, I need the two of you to intertwine your hands with each other and act as if the two of you are leaning in for a kiss, and then you will be fused into one once again, she instructed, and both Namis stood across from each other and did what they were told. They intertwined each other's hands with each other and leaned in as if they were leaning in for a kiss while never breaking eye contact with each other. And moments before their lips touched each other, they were surrounded by a bright light. Moments later the light died down and only one Nami stood where there were once two. This Nami looked like the original Nami with her orange hair and red eyes. The only thing different about her was the slit going across her forehead and the black and white kimono with the yin and yang symbol on the front of it. She looked up at Miyu with a soft smile on her face. I feel great. Thanks Miyu-chan, she said while giving Miyu a hug and a soft kiss on the lips, and quickly broke away from her with a huge blush on her face. Why do I keep doing that? It's like I have no control over my hormones, she said with a frustrated sigh. Miyu just gave Nami a smirk before explaining the situation to her. Going merry. 3 hours later. Nami slowly opened her eyes and slowly sat up. She rubbed her eyes and surveys her surroundings to find that she was in the medical bay. She looked around to see that Robin was sitting on a chair next to her bed, Epping with a book on Fuinjutsu hanging loosely in her hand. Chopper was leaning against Usopp on a nearby wall, who had some drool coming out the corners of his mouth. Zoro was sitting against another wall with his arms crossed over his chest while sitting with his legs crossed, snoring away. Finally there was Rei, who was sleeping peacefully on the floor with her arms folded behind her head while snoring lightly. Nami shook her head and decided now was the best time to try out her Jagan. She sent a little yoki to her head and the line that was on her forehead slowly opened and her hair slowly began to stand and spike up. When the eye fully opened, it revealed a blue eye that had a slit in it. Nami, knowing that it was open, decided to try out one of the eye's abilities. I want to try out the remote viewing ability. But who to try it on? No, Nojiko. I want to see how she's doing. Okay, concentrate and focus on Nojiko, she thought as she closed her eyes trying to picture her sister Nojiko. As she focused and concentrated on finding Nojiko, the Jagan shined brightly. After 10 minutes of concentrating, she found Nojiko tending to the mycons by Bellmare's house. She saw her sweating and tending to the grove of mycons. Wanting to speak to her, she tried out her telepathic power. "Nojiko, can you hear me?" she said through her mind, making Nojiko to stop working and to look around with a confused look on her face. "Yes Nojiko, it's me Nami." This made Nojiko drop her hoe and started talking to herself. "Kokoyashi Village. Nami, where the hell are you?" Nojiko said as she looked around before slapping her head in frustration. "I must be going crazy. I think Nami is actually talking to me. It must be this damn heat," she said as she rubbed some sweat off of her forehead. "You're not going crazy Nojiko." "Well, not yet anyway," Nami said with a laugh, making Nojiko glare at nothing in particular. "Okay, where the hell are you Nami, or whoever is saying this? Stop joking around so I can work." "Jay. Easy Nojiko, don't blow a gasket, and if you really want to know where I'm at, I'm in the Grand Line with my crew, and to how I'm talking to you like this. Let's just say I gain a special ability and it allows me to see and speak with anyone I want. Oh, and you better talk to me through your mind so people won't think you're a complete nut," Nami said, laughing softly. "Nami, it really is you. No one else knows how to piss me off like you do. So where in the Grand Line are you?" "Upper Yard. Going merry. You won't believe it, but I'm up on an island in the sky called Skypia." "You're right, I don't believe you." "Fine, just let me send you the memories on how we got here then." Nami then thought about how the crew got to Skypia through the knock upstream and showed Nojiko the memory, leaving her in shock. "Believe me now," she said smugly. "Yeah, I believe you, so tell me, who are those new people who joined the crew with you?" "The reindeer is Tony Chopper, and we recruited him on Drum Island. The woman with the raven hair is Nico Robin, and we picked her up in Alabasta. And the last two are Nara Rei and Uzumaki Naruto, and we got them during our time in Jaya, while trying to find information on Skypia." "You mean Rei the Shadow Phoenix and Naruto of the Darkness Flame? And you also mean to tell me that Nico Robin joined the crew with you guys? I must say that your crew will be one of the best on the sea." "Nojiko, thanks for the compliment, but I have to go. The others are waking up and I don't want them to see my eye and start freaking out." I'll tell you later Nojiko, and I'll contact you again when I get the chance." "Alright Nami, take care of yourself and make sure you contact me soon." "I will, and you take care of yourself as well Nojiko," Nami said as she see the connection between the two of them, and slowly opened her eyes as her jagan closed and her hair fell back down over her face. She then remembered Miyu telling her about covering it up and focuses on the white cloth she had given her back in her mindscape. A few seconds after concentrating, the cloth appeared in her hand in a black flame. She gets out of the bed and walks over to the mirror and wraps the cloth around her forehead like a bandana, covering up her eye. She smiles, thinks about how powerful she had become, and now knew that she would be able to take care of herself and wouldn't have to run or rely on too many tricks on battle anymore. Once she finished observing herself in the mirror, she was surprised when Zoro spoke. "Nami, what was with that third eye I saw?" he said as everyone else awakens as well. Rei had been awake the moment Nami started using the Jagan. Robin woke up a minute after Nami did and had observed her silently while keeping her eye slightly open. Chopper and Usopp had no idea what Zoro was talking about and listened in. She explained everything that happened in her mindscape and about gaining the Jagan, but leaving out the thing about her becoming a Hanyo. Because she didn't know how the crew would react and decided to tell them only if she was forced to transform and was forced to use her Yoki again. "So you have some weird quicker than the Aiko." Old Sea Ray appeared behind Usopp and covered his mouth with her hand before he could finish his sentence. She looked nervously over at Nami and saw a strained look on her face. "Baka, didn't she just say not to insult the Jagan?" Ray said, berating Usopp for his stupidity or carelessness. No one really knew. Zoro, having enough of being inside of the room, decided now was the time to leave. He walked out of the room now wearing a blue tank top with some black pants and some green goggles on his head with a brown traveling bag on his back. Nami exited another room wearing a yellow shirt over a blue and white bikini top with some black pants with yellow rings on it, with her open-toe shoes, and she also had a red bag on her back. Robin walked out wearing a yellow spaghetti strap shirt with white eyeing on it with a white cowboy hat on her head that had yellow stripe lining on it. Some purple capri pants with an orange-white belt and with a pair of purple heels. Ray came out wearing a white spaghetti strap shirt with the Nara family symbol on the back in black and a black phoenix on the front. Like Robin, she wore herself some capri pants, but hers were in black and she had on her black shin obi sandals and she had a black bag on her back. Chopper came out wearing pretty much the same thing, except now he had a blue bag on his back. Zoro walked to where he found the vine earlier in the dock. And cut it while grabbing it before it fell to where land was located at. Chopper, this is what we are going to use to get across the water, he said, and not waiting for any response took a running start and jumped off Mary while yelling a George of the Jungle cry. The others who saw this sweat dropped, well except for Robin, who settled with an amused look. What was that? Nami shouted with her arms crossed over her chest. A call of bravery, she questioned just as Robin went sailing over the skyshark-infested pond with ease. Robin is so cool, Chopper said with a star-struck smile on his face. She makes it look easy, Nami said in a frightened tone. She then grabs the vine as it swings back to her. She grabs it nervously while looking at how far the other two were and how high she was with the vine. This is a bit high, she said with a frightened look on her face. It's about 50 meters. If you don't make it, you'll die, Robin said with a smile on her face which infuriated Nami. Stop scaring me. After a few minutes have passed, she finally jumped off the ship while screaming at the top of her lungs about how fast she was going. She then spotted a tree she was about to crash into, and luckily for her, Robin saved her. Ray watched them and looked at the vine and then turns to Chopper. There's no way I'm going to swing on that thing. I'm going to take another way to get across. So are you going to be okay by yourself, Chopper? Ray asked as she walked over to where the mainsail was making a large shadow. Yes, I'll be fine, and if I need any help I'll just blow the whistle, he said, pointing over to the whistle hanging on the mainmast. Ray nodded her head while going through some hand seals and she pictured Robin's shadow. Kajhoko, she said as she walked into the shad out of the mast and disappearing while reappearing out Robin's shadow, scaring Nami, while startling Zoro and Robin. She even heard Chopper shout how cool that was. She feels eyes on her and see that Nami, Robin and Zoro was all staring at her. I don't do heights, she said simply while walking in some random direction into the beast-infected forest. Zoro walked after her with Robin and Nami not too far behind. They walked for an hour trying to find their way around, but soon decided to split up to cover more ground. Nami told them all to meet back by the sacrificial altar in 5 hours' time. Zoro went by himself in some random direction. Robin walked off to where she spotted a giant beanstalk. Nami, like Zoro, walked in some random direction with Ray walking with her to make sure she doesn't sow anything that may get herself killed. With Naruto. What's up with all these damn balls? Naruto shouted in anger and frustration. He couldn't believe how crazy this place was. First they had to go through a number of traps that included falling trees, flying blades, a boomerang-like blade, and a spinning disc blade that almost cut the little crow in half. The place had been hell so far, and it got only worse when they chose the ordeal of Ball's Tunnel and fell about 50 feet onto a lower level of upper yard. After the drop, Naruto could safely say that he was actually afraid, and the 3 other members agreed with him. Now here he was watching Luffy and Usopp playing with one of those stupid white balls. He watched as Luffy passed it over to Usopp only to have a snake try to bite Hi's head off, and lucky for him Luffy punched the ball away. Snake eggs, Sanji said as he spotted another white ball appearing in front of his face. He leaned back slightly and kicked it only for the W. Height ball to glow a bright yellow, and they all knew what was about to happen, and Naruto said the one thing that was the crew's mind at the moment. Shit, he said right before the ball exploded in their faces. Once again they were lucky because the ball only let out a small explosion and it only charred their skin and some of their new clothes. Sanji's new slightly violet Hawaiian shirt was singed slightly along with his black pants. He changed his normal shoes and had on a flatter pair. Usopp didn't really change except that he now wore a green shirt under his brown overalls. Luffy didn't change either, but he now had his vest open showing his toned chest. Naruto also didn't change much either. He left his trench coat back with Gon Fall and now just Wore his black shirt, pants, shinobi saw. Ndals with his Hittite wrapped around his neck, and he had his fan strapped to his back. What none of them noticed was that there was a very large and round man wearing a white bodysuit with yellow rings going from around his neck to below his non-existent waist was watching them from behind his white round glass with yellow lens in them. He also had on orange gloves, boots, and an orange hat over his long wavy red hair that dropped past his non-existent shoulders. And last, but not least, he had white angel wings on his back that was slightly larger than the Skypians. I call them surprise balls, he said in a high voice that sounded slightly feminine, startling the crew, and they all turned towards him. Hesso, he said in a sing-a-song voice. Who are you? Usopp said in a scared tone of voice. Sattorii of the forest, and I'm one of the 4 Skypia priests. I must thank you for choosing the ordeal of balls, he said in a sing-a-song voice while doing a strange laugh at the end, eel dancing on top of the ball he was just sitting on, making the crew to sweat drop. What's with this dango guy? Sanji said with his sweat drop growing larger watching the round man dance. Are you sure he's one of those priests? He looks weak and stupid, Usopp whispered over to the others. Yeah, Nami said that they were dangerous, Luffy said in a disappointed voice. Where is Nami-san dango? Sanji shouted. Oh, the sacrifices, I don't know. If they're still at the altar then they're most likely dead, and if they somehow escaped then it won't be long before they are, Sattorii said while spinning in a circle. But it won't matter, because you won't get past me. And just to let you know, you have a 10% survival rate, he said with a smile before jumping towards them. Luffy, seeing this, jumped and got in front of everyone while cocking his fist back. Gomu Gomu no, he started just as Sattorii was inches from him. You're going to stretch, are you? He said, shifting his body slightly, preparing for the strike, startling Luffy. But he didn't have enough time to stop his attack. Pistol, he finished, stretching out his right arm only for Sattorii to dodge it and appear right in front of him. With his left hand directly in front of Luffy's face, making the captain's eyes widen in shock before he was blown away by a force coming from the priest's hand. The crew watched in shock as Luffy was blown away and crashed into a tree, cracking it due to the force of the impact. He then fell from the tree while coughing up blood and finally collapsing to the ground motionless. Sanji, not wanting to give the priest another chance to attack, ran at him, preparing to kick him far away. An upper kick using the right foot, he muttered as he dodged Sanji's kick, making his Naruto's eyes widen in shock. Because the round man had predicted what Sanji was going to do. This is an ability to those who had practiced in the art of mantra, he said just as he placed his hand in front of Sanji's face with a smile on his face as he blew Sanji away as well. How can such a weak punch do that? Usopp said in fear. That wasn't quite a punch. No, it wasn't a punch at all, Sattorii said as he appeared behind Usopp and placed his hand by his back, making Usopp break into a cold sweat before he too was blown away by the priest. Naruto, seeing enough, releases his fan from his back and jumped into the air, preparing to smack the dango man down into the milky road. Appear into the air and straight into a downward strike with a fan, Sattorii said with a smirk before he lifted his hand once again and stopping the fan from moving and making Naruto's eyes to widen in horror. I put all my strength into the strike. How the hell did he black it? He thought just as Sattorii batted the fan away from him and placed his hand on Naruto's chest. Impact, he said with a smirk, and Naruto literally blasted away and crashed into a tree, almost snapping it in half. He coughed up blood and collapsed to the ground, struggling to get back to his feet. His teeth gritted in pain as he coughed up another wave of blood. The shockwaves attack the body from the inside. As you know, I am Sattorii, and I am a servant to the almighty god Enel. And since you have no chance of beating me, I should just get rid of this, he said in a sing-a-song voice as he stepped on the gas pedal on the dial ship, making it sail away. And to O's your dial ship is to lose your only way to the sacrificial altar. I advise you not to lose sight of it, or you will never reach your friends, and if you manage to somehow to get past me, you still haven to worry about the countless surprise balls floating in the area, and they are filled with many dangerous and deadly things, Sattorii said, laughing, but soon stopped when he dodged a flame-infested punch that was aimed at his head by one Uzumaki Naruto. Luffy and the others had also gotten to their feet and was preparing to fight, or in Usopp's case run to catch their only means of transportation. "You're going down, Dango," Sanji shouted. "I'm going to beat you down, fatty," Luffy said, balling up both of his fists. "I'm going to beat your fat ass all across this place," Naruto said as his hands were once again engulfed by a reddish-orange flame. "You guys fight him while I try to reach the boat," Usopp said as he took off running. Sattorii, seeing this, ran after him only to dodge a giant fireball coming from behind him. He turned only to dodge a stretching fist that was aimed at his face, forcing him to the ground. He saw Sanji approaching him and knew what he was going to do. So Sattorii swiftly ducked under a kick sent by an infuriated Sanji and placed his gloved hand on Sanji's chest. "Impact," Sattorii said with a smirk, making Sanji fly into a surprise ball, and it exploded on contact, making him fall to the ground in a lifeless manner. This infuriated Luffy, and he charged Sattorii blindly while cocking both of his fists back. "Gomu Gomu no Gatling," he shouted, firing rapid punches at Sattorii, who skillfully dodged each one and got between Luffy's attacks, stopping him from continuing his onslaught of punches, and lifted his hand directly in front of Luffy's face. "Impact," he said, as he blasted Luffy into a surprise ball, and was surprised when nothing came out of it. "Humadud, lucky," he said in a sing-a-song voice. "A right kick from behind directed at the head," he said as he did a backflip over Naruto's kick and landed behind him, and placed his hand over his back and did another impact attack and sent Naruto into 3 different surprise balls that were stuck together. The first ball had many snakes coming out of it and biting Naruto with their poisonous fangs. The second ball had knives shooting out of it, piercing Naruto's body all over and making him scream in pain. And the last surprise ball exploded, sending Naruto's body sailing into a tree, making it leave an impression of his body in it. He coughed up some more blood and he was steadily losing consciousness, before he heard 2 voices shouting from within him. "Get up and fight, Naruto," Kyuubi snarled from her cage. "Fight, Naruto-kun," Shia roared from within her domain. "If I even think you're giving up or going to lose, I will take over this battle for you. The overgrown fleabag is right, and besides, Naruto, you're stronger than this. Now get up and fight," Shia shouted, making Naruto's right arm pulse with power. Naruto nodded his head mentally and slowly closed his eyes and snapped them open a second later, revealing his Dujutsu, the Darkness Eye. He saw Sattorii jumping from ball to ball, gaining on Usopp and Sanji, who was trying to catch their boat. He saw Luffy slowly getting back to his feet and breaking into a sprint to catch up with the priest and his crewmates. Naruto felt his wounds healing and took off after Luffy and the others while using some chakra to increase his speed. He reached Sattorii a few minutes later, just in time to see Luffy get thrown away by the laughing priest. Priest soon stops laughing when he sees Naruto rushing him and knew exactly what to suspect. A backhand going across the face followed up with a high kick, and like her predicted, Naruto did what he said and dodged them effortlessly, but was shocked when he felt a searing pain coming from his gut. He looked down to see a flaming fist in his gut and he slowly backed away from the flaming fist. But due to his shock, he wasn't prepared for the attack that hit him in his back. "Gomu Gomu no pistol," Luffy cried as he punched Sattorii in his back, sending him into a tree and cracking it on impact. Luffy put himself back on guard just in case Sattorii got back up, and Naruto mimicked his actions. "Hey Luffy, when this fat ass gets back up, let's double team him, since I doubt that mantra stuff could work against 2 opponents at the same time," Naruto explained as he went through a few hand seals and his hands was covered in a mini whirlwind. Luffy noticed this action and refrained from asking him what it did, but just nodded his head. And after waiting for a few seconds longer, Sattorii got back to his feet while wiping the blood from his mouth. "It seems like playtime is over," he said with a frown, and was no longer smiling. He then jumped on a nearby surprise ball and kicked it towards Luffy and Naruto, and continued to kick and punch more and more towards the 2 pirates. They both saw the coming and jumped out the way to avoid the explosions, snakes, swords, poison and other things coming from the surprise balls. Naruto and Luffy both shared a glance and then glared at Sattorii while speaking at the same time. "No more games," Naruto said, raising his right hand into the air, and a swirling black ball of chakra appeared in it with his eyes glowing in eerie black. "It's over, Dango man," Luffy said as he stretched his fist back as far as he could. Gomu Gomu no, Ensatsu. Both Naruto and Luffy said in unison as Luffy suddenly brought his fist back, heading it on a crash course towards the still shaken Sattorii. Once Luffy's wrist appeared in Naruto's vision, he grabbed it while being pulled towards Sattorii at high speeds. Before Sattorii had a chance to react, he was suddenly hit with the two pirates' two attacks. Pistol, Rasengan, Renden. They shouted in unison as Luffy's punch connected with Sattorii's chest, making him fly back into a tree, and Naruto was propelled towards bleeding priest and thrust his Rasengan into his chest, making him catch on fire and spiral through the Mutpley trees. Naruto landed on his feet and gave him Captain the Nice Guy pose, which Luffy replied with his trademark goofy smile. Naruto then suddenly remembered Sanji and Usopp and their lost boat and his fan. Luffy, we have to find Sanji, Usopp, the boat, and my fan, Naruto said in a panic. And before Luffy could join him, they heard a voice from the Milky Road. No need, Sanji and I are right here and your fan is right here on the ship, Naruto, Usopp said, waving his arms so they could see him. Sanji looked down at them with his cigarette in his mouth and looked at the damage the two of them had caused and whistled. So how do the two of you plan on getting up here? Sanji asked in the blink when he saw Luffy stretch his arm out and grab onto the ship, causing his, Usopp's and Naruto's eyes to widen in horror. Luffy, don't do you dare, Naruto said, slowly backing away from his grinning captain. While also temporarily forgetting that he was a ninja and knew a jutsu that could simply get him away from his captain or onto their small ship. He then watched as Luffy stretched and wrapped his arm around his waist and smiled an even bigger smile as he made both of them crash into the ship. Yes, they were definitely going to get Luffy back for this, but for now they had to find Nami and the others and hope they made it there in time. Unknown to them, Nami, Ray, Zoro, Robin, and Chopper were fighting their own battles. Sorry for the long wait, but I've been busy on different stories and different story ideas. Yeah, I know I should at least finish one of my works before trying to write another story, but if I don't write it down and I will end up losing it and then I will be depressed and or pissed for days. But that's beside the point at the moment, and just want to let you know on a few things. Yes, Nami had the Jagan Eye. The same Jagan that Hiei had. From Yu Yu Hakusho and Shish. He had all of its abilities along with a few more that you will all find about later. Now about the interaction between Nami, Dark Nami, and Miu the Lightning Dragon. I don't actually know what to say about that. But, for the sake of my story, let's just say that all dragon demons are very sensual and sexual creatures, and their need for sex is on a level much higher than normal demons and humans. And, yes, some of you may be wondering who will be fighting Nami. It will be a stupid fool who will invoke the wrath of the Jagan. Some of you may also be thinking why Naruto got beat up so badly. It's simple really. Naruto wasn't prepared for the power of the impact dial. And if I did have him acting super powerful and easily defeated Sattorii, it wouldn't have been too real. Plus you have to remember that the impact dial can absorb the force of a hit or strike and return it equally to that. And you also have to remember that Naruto tried to hit him with his giant battle fan at full force and he got the return damage to his insides, so his speed and everything else was reduced by a lot. Once again, that's besides the point. Now for the preview. I admit you're strong, girl, but without that stupid freakish eye of yours, you would be nothing. You shouldn't have insulted the Jagan. Why is that, you orange bimbo? Because the Jagan has a mind of its own and it doesn't take too well to being insulted, and who am I to try to hold it back from having its revenge? What's is this power? This power is too powerful for me to control, and with the Jagan this angry I have no say in the matter. I believe my right arm will do. What are you doing? Now fear the power of the Jagan, have mercy. I don't think so. Now die, Jiao Ensatsu Kokuryuha, ah. Now who's next? End preview. Yeah, I know it's strange, right, but it's all going to fall together soon. And also next chapter Isa has a confrontation with Ray and I wonder how that is going to turn out. But until then, remember to read and review, and maybe I'll update soon, but I probably won't due to me working on my other stories. On another note, my Otome Naruto crossover FIC should be out in a few days, along with a new chapter of his Destiny, True Chosen, and Ayumi no Kaido. So be prepared for them because I'm sure you're going to like them. Translation: Kajhoko. Shadow Walk. Now so long and until next time. Chapter 5. Thank you for your time, and now here is the story. Also please thank my beta Grumpy Winter for helping me with this chapter and for being me beta of course. Now here is the story, chapter. Nami and Ray had been walking together for an hour, and still haven't found any treasure or their friends yet. Ray sighed and leaned against a tree, not noticing that Nami hadn't noticed her stop and rest. After 10 minutes of resting, she gets back up, and looks around for her orange-haired companion. She then came to a startling realization, and frowned in frustration. Troublesome navigator, she thought in annoyance, and saw a blue beam heading directly towards her. She jumped out of the way, and watched as the blue energy beam sliced right through the giant tree behind her. She blinked, and turned her eyes to a girl holding a type of bazooka-looking gun in her hands. Her red eyes glared at Ray in anger, and she gripped her gun tightly in her hand. You don't belong on this land. Isa spoke with a heavy glare on her face. It's not like this troublesome place belongs to you. It belongs to all the Shandians. Now leave or I'll kill you. Ray ignored her, and walked away, while melting into the shadows. Isa saw, and felt her vanish. Then she felt the girl behind her. She rolled away, and aimed her burn blade at her. Burn blade, she shouted, and fired her bazooka-type gun, at the surprised shinobi. And a larger explosion rocked the area. Nami, what was that explosion? She looked behind her, and saw that Ray was nowhere in sight. She closed her eyes briefly, and focused on her Jagan. She tried to feel for Ray's essence, but couldn't find her anywhere. She couldn't even locate her life force. That's when Nami came to a startling conclusion, that frightened her to the core. Ray's dead. I bet that explosion. Without a second thought she ran towards the area, but before she could go any farther, she found herself surrounded by 20 different goat-looking men, with a very man with long white hair. Men, she is one of the 8 criminals. Take her in, and I'll allow some of you to have some fun with her. After me of course, he said with a lust smile on his face. Nami's eyes narrowed angrily at him. This bastard had not just thought of actually raping her. No, he did, and she was going to make him suffer, along with every single last of his goat men, who had licked their lips. Her Jagan flashed angrily, and the cloth covering her third eyes was beginning to burn in anger. Nami pulled out her klima tacked from her right thigh, and pieced it together, while the goat men and the fat white guy were having sexual fantasies. Nami started twirling 2 pieces of her staff in circles at a rapid pace, and a large storm cloud was forming above their heads. Unfortunately for Nami, one of the goat men saw her, and immediately rushed towards her, and gave her a brutal spin kick to her face. She was sent sailing into a tree, and it cracked under the force of the hit. Nami coughed up some blood, but managed to get back to her feet. She glared angrily at the smirking goat man and his calm Apnians. Oh, how she wished she could just blast the freak to shreds, and to answer her call. Her right arm pulsed with power, and a black electrical charge went through it. She grinned weakly, hoping what she was about to do would work. She unwarped the bandage on her arm a bit, to only where the head of the dragon was showing. She then pointed her hand at the smirking goat man, and placed her hand in a snapping position. I hope this works. Unknown to her, the Jagan was glowing brightly as she focused her power through her right arm, and into her hand. She then snapped her fingers, and a blast of black lightning shot out of her fingers, and burnt the man into nothing. He fell to the ground dead. Oddly she didn't feel any amount of regret over the fact she killed the goat bastard. Something inside of her told her, if she hadn't killed him, the man would have tried to kill her friends. Rape her like the fat white-haired man wanted, or had done both. One less scum in the world. A faint voice spoke to her. At first she thought it was Miu, but this voice sounded male. Reasons unknown to her, she agreed with the voice, Willer glaring at the startled goat men and the angry fat white-haired guy. You'll pay for that, the man spoke with iciness in his eyes. Men attack. The goat men all charged at Nami at once, all with rage in their eyes. Reveal the Jagan. This time Miu's voice spoke to her. Not needing to be told twice, she did what she was told. She grabbed the cloth on her head, and tore it off. The Jagan was burning brightly, but the men didn't care. Sure, they were shocked, but that shock could lead to one's death. And the goat men weren't that stupid to allow themselves to be killed, like their comrade, that was just killed by the orange-haired demon. When one of the goat men reached Nami, she flipped out the way, and the dragon warned her of a few more surrounding her. She snapped her fingers at them, and took out 5 of them. The white-haired man snarled at her, and with speeds she thought that he didn't have, he appeared behind her and smashed her in the back of her head. She was sent crashing to the ground in a loud thud. She felt a few of her ribs crack under the force of the crash. She closed her eyes, in pain. But the dragon remained open and it was glaring fiercely at the white-haired man. I admit you're strong girl, but without that stupid freakish eye of yours, you would be nothing. The white-haired man named Obi laughed as he said this. The dragon burned brightly at this, and the eye turned angry gold color. Her hair spiked up, and had black electrical currents shooting out of it. Nami then stood up with no problems, surprising all present. When she opened her eyes, they were no longer red, but gold with slits in the iris. You shouldn't have insulted the dragon, she spoke calmly, while trying to control her burning body. Obi just sneered at Nami in distaste and annoyance, not even bothered by her transformation. Why is that, you orange bimbo? Nami shook her head, with a sadistic smile appearing on her face. And frecting the men further, inculcating Obi. Because the dragon has a mind of its own. It doesn't take kindly to being insulted, and who am I to try to hold it from having its revenge? She asked as her body was surrounded by a black aura that was felt all through upper yard. She slowly began unwrapping the rest of the bandage covering her right arm. The bandage then blew away in the wind, and her arm revealed a black dragon tattoo on it. Her arm was then covered in a black flame, and all life surrounding the area fled, except for Obi and his goat men. What is this power? Obi asked as he felt Ho's body frozen in shock. He saw fangs appearing out of Nami's mouth, and knew that he should have avoided this girl when he had the chance. This power is too powerful for me to control. With the dragon this angry, I have no say in the matter. I believe my right arm will do, she said as she closed her fist, and the black flame vanished from her arm completely, but something was wrong. Everyone in the area could feel it. What are you doing? Nami just glared at Obi in annoyance, with a deathly smirk appearing on her face. Now fear the power of the dragon, she shouted, and reared her fist back preparing to kill the man in front of her. Have mercy, Obi begged, but Nami only gave him a look of disgust. I don't think so. Now die, she shouted, and punched Foru. Ard releasing a black dragon from her fist, with her arm burning with raw power. Jiao Ensatsu Kokuryuha, the black dragon sailed towards the frightened man. Obi screamed as it collided with his body, and sailed past 10 of his men, burning them to a crisp as it went past them. The dragon then slammed into a tree, leaving nothing but the imprint of the man in it. As the attack died down, Nami's whole right hand was burnt to a crisp. She winced in pain as she attempted to move it, sighing she gave up on trying for now. Her left hand, now claw, was still movable, and she glared at the remaining goat men, with bloodlust rolling off of her in waves. Now who's next? She snarled with a manic glint in her eye, before rushing at the freedom goat men, deep within her right arm. Miu sighed as she forced to give her away her firstborn so soon. She felt the bloodlust rolling off of Nami, and tried to put it under control, but found that she couldn't. She tried it again, but a cold voice stopped her. Allow the girl to finish these pitiful humans. Allow her to know what it means to be a demon, and allow her to choose her path. To be a murderous demon or not, but for her to choose. She must kill these worthless humans. Don't interfere or I'll kill you. Miu shivered as she heard the voice, and just walked back into her house without staring, where she saw a shadow of a man standing was glaring at her. Be great, child. Pave your way through destiny through blood. The figure chuckled softly, and vanished from the area. Rorano Azoro. That malicious power, what was it? Zoro thought to himself as he continued to walk through the never-ending forest. Tony Chopper. Scary. I sure hope Nami or anybody else wasn't too close to whatever that was, Chopper thought. As he leaned against the rail on deck. Nico Robin. Robin turned in the direction where the frightening power had disappeared at. She then turned away, while hoping nothing had happened to her friends. She sighed softly, as she continued her walk to where she saw an ancient building in the distance. Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, and Naruto. That was unreal, Luffy thought with a serious expression on his face. He could still feel some of the bloodlust in the air, and he's been on his guard, just in case anything attacked them. I hope Nami-san, Robin-chan, Rei-san, and the other two are safe. Sanji thought as he smoked his cigarette, while driving the little crow. Scary, thought Usopp with his knees shaking in fear. I wonder why that felt so familiar, Naruto thought with a frown. Thinking what may have caused that much power to surge through the area. His thoughts then drifted off to the ritual he put Nami through and his eyes widened in realization. How the hell? I hope she didn't use any part of her body for that technique or it will be completely useless until I can heal it. Enel, just full of surprises aren't you? But you are too dangerous to my plans, you either must be eliminated or I can make you my queen, what shall I choose? Enel thought as he finishes off his apple and grabs another one with his mind racing on what to do with Nami. Nami, after an hour of walking mindlessly through upper yard with dry blood on her hands and her jagan once again closed. Nami slowly made her way back to the merry-go knowing she wasn't up to any more adventure at the moment. Her eyes were dead to the world. Her mind continued to replay what she had done to those goat men. So many screams, so much blood, they begged for mercy, but I didn't care, I just wanted their blood and so did the jagan. I'm sorry, I tried to suppress your bloodlust, but it was too strong. Just know this is something all demons go through, you are no different. If you keep your emotions in check, it shouldn't happen again, but I know that task will be almost impossible. For you, ask me and I'll bind your emotions, but it will only be for a temporary amount of time, Nami contemplated her words. But shook her head, no, I need my emotions. I would be considered weak if I had you bind my emotions, I just need to get through this. I'm a pirate, I'm going to be facing death sooner or later, he answers as she continued walking through the forest with more life in her eyes. Good choice Nami-chan, I wouldn't have said it better myself, Nami replies with a mental smile and made her way back to the ship. Not noticing that she was being followed. She's the one. The figure then vanishes in a strange black vapor before it was noticed. Shandia Asia enters the secret entrance to her village and made her way through it. Thinking the close was clear she made a break for it, but then trips as someone spoke to her. Where were you, Isa? Kamakiri. Isa shouts in surprise and Kamakiri ignores her and continues. Went to upper yard again. You have Verth in your purse don't you? He pauses trying to allow what he said to the girl to be absorbed. If you don't stop doing that you're going to lose your life. Isa scoffs at this and Kamakiri turns his head to the girl sharply. Blah, like it's any of your concern, I'm a warrior just like you, besides, she trails off turning her head to her escape route. You still can't beat Enel. She then takes off like a rocket, leaving Kamakiri standing with blood vessels appearing on his arms as he grips his knife tightly. Damn, little punk. Back with Isa she was just nearing a tent where the woman she sees as an older sister was in an important meeting. The meeting was reaching an end and Isa heard Wiper shouting. If you are uncertain, don't join the battle, lackey! ! Quote. Isa heard this and she felt anger raising inside of her and she had to force it down. You will only be in the way. Just as she was about to go in there and shout at Wiper. Even if she is afraid of him, she was stopped by another voice. Isa, once again she falls flat on her face and she stands up angrily and glares at the smirking man. I never didn't enter upper yard, she said panicking and the man chuckles lightly. Don't enter the 10 yet, Isa blinks waiting for Bram to continue. That man, who inherited the great warrior Kalgara's blood, is quite angry. Isa shivers lightly at this wondering what the hell she would have done if she would have attacked Wiper, probably been killed. That's scary. Scarier than God, a frightened look appears on her face. Then her eyes suddenly goes wide as she hears two sounds going silent in upper yard. Have to tell Wiper, she takes a deep breath and shouts in the tent. Wiper, lackey, guys. She shouts and in an instant all the Shandian warriors stepped out of the tent. What is it Isa? Lackey asked as she stepped towards the younger girl. My mantra. Two voices went silent within upper yard. She said a little meekly as she tried not to look into Wiper's piercing eyes. Who was it Isa? Wiper demands in a tone that wanted her to leave nothing out. Gone fall and priest Sattorii, s. He said as she gained some strength in her words. This is our chance. The true God has answered our prayers. If we are to succeed we must move now, he shouts as he and his men begins walking away. Aki turns to Isa with a scowl and slaps her arm away from her leg. Isa, you're still not used to wiper. Geez, stop clinging onto me like that. You're 13, grow up. Ignoring Lackey's words, Isa speaks up once again. Lackey. Hey Lackey. Isa shouts into her cousin's ear. What? Gone fall didn't beat the priest. There were other people down there. They did it. A serious expression crosses Lackey's face as Isa says. I don't know who they are, but they are very strong. Please be careful. Lackey smiles at Isa's concern and talked to her about the verth in her purse. As the duo talked, Ray appears from the shadow of the tent near Isa, before vanishing instantly. Isa felt her and her eyes narrow slightly at this. She's still alive, and I led her here. Lackey would be disappointed if found out, and Wiper would probably kill me. She shudders as she feels Ray's presence vanishing once again and continues to listen to Lackey as she tried to take her bag of verth away. Chopper. Must heal them. Chopper said weakly as he bandaged up Gone Fall and his ride pet friend Pierre. Have to heal them. No time to worry about who saved us, he mumbles as he finishes wrapping their bandages and slowly wrapped his own wounds. Guys, please hurry back. Luffy and company. So many skulls around here, why? Naruto questions in an uninterested tone. He then sits up and turns behind him. We have company, guys. The others turn just as the Shandians jumps overhead and Luffy locks eyes with Wiper. Wiper flips and fires a cannon at them and Luffy glares up at him. Gomu Gomu no balloon, he inflates his body and bounces the cannon away from his crew and into the forest, causing an explosion to rock the area. Paramika, a devil fruit user. Wiper questions as he continues onward, then stops to give the shouting Luffy a message. You four are the ones from the Blue Sea that's been causing a racket on Skypia. If you don't want to die, go back to the Blue Sea, but, he trails off glaring fiercely at the unintimidated Straw Hats. Usopp was intimidated, but the other three weren't. If you try anything on this island, I'll treat you like Enel, and eliminate you as well, that is if you have the strength to escape from this place. Having sent his message, he left again, ignoring the shouting Luffy, and never noticing Ray, who appeared from the shadow of the tree he was just on. Sensei. Long nose, Sanji, Captain. Ray shouts as she waved her arms around, getting their attention. Ray-san. Sanji shouts with enthusiasm, but not the loving kind he shows older women. Ray, where are the others? Naruto shouts as Ray vanishes into the shadows and reappears on the ship from Usopp's shadow, scaring him senseless. Chopper is back with Mary. Zoro and Robin is in a group last I checked. And I somehow lost Nami in the forest once. I took a small break and nearly lost my life fighting against this girl who was riding on one of those skates being powered by a breath dial. Hitchta. Ride in the girl's shadow where I learned her name was Isa. The guy who just tried to kill you was Wiper, and they are now going to war with Enel and his priest to regain their land. This place, she explains with a yawn. Also, the power I felt earlier is still bothering me. Naruto nods in agreement along with Sanji and the serious-looking Luffy. The group traveled talking about the things that happened during their day, and after another hour of traveling with the sun setting around them, they finally made it to the altar where Nami was leaning against a tree sleeping with her right arm over her chest. Zoro was staring at the ship wondering how they were going to get back onto Mary, and Robin was sitting next to the sleeping Nami, staring at her burnt arm in wonder. We finally made it, Usopp shouts in happiness. I'm here, Nami-san. Robin-chan, I've passed the trial of love. Just for you. Naruto sweats drop at them, but his eyes along with Ray and Luffy stares at Nami's prone from Nami's arm. What happened? Luffy questions silently as they got closer top their crewmates. Naruto, you know what happened, don't you? That power we felt earlier today, was Nami's right? Naruto turns to Luffy and nods his head silently. Yes, she used a technique she shouldn't know, nor should have used without the proper training. How she managed to accomplish something like that technique is beyond me. Naruto's eyes widen slightly as he sees the white bandage-like headband around her forehead. But I think I may have a clue as of why. Luffy stays silent before asking another question. What technique could have done that to her arm? he asked as Zoro carries the unconscious Nami onto the little crow with Robin stepping in after him. The Dragon of the Darkness Flame technique. He answers as he places his glowing green hand near her arm, only to be shocked by a spark of black lightning. I won't be able to heal this, I'm going to have to bind her arm and place Specia. L seals on a new bandage to contain her power, and hopefully it will heal on its own once I seal it, he said with a frown and a mental glare to the nervous Shia. Things are becoming a lot more complicated than they need be. 5th chapter is complete and finally here. I know it's been a while, but we all have to take breaks sometime, don't want to end up braindead or anything like that. To Audrey's some issues before they become a problem. To tell you the truth, I can't think of none, but I do know some will come eventually. Concerning Nami using the dragon flame technique too eerily, well needed it to be done so her arm would be destroyed for a while, you'll find out why it needs to be later, much later. Plus I gave a little sneak preview to Nami's Berserker mode, not an original name, it will do until I can come up with something else. You all didn't think the gold eyes were for nothing, did you? But who cares about that when you all should worrying about the next chapter, which probably won't be out for some time from now. Oh well, I'm sure you all have patience to wait. Preview. Robin, are you saying this place used to be a part of Jaya? Correct, Navigator-san. Then that means one thing. What does it mean, Nami-san? Gold and treasure. Chapter 6. I don't own Naruto or One Piece. Enjoy chapter. Opening her eyes, Nami found that she was in the forest not too far from the Mary. A blanket covered her body and she went to move it, when she screamed, feeling an intense pain rip through her arm, alerting the others that she had awakened. Tears fell from her eyes, and the pain rips through it once more with a small electrical current running through it. Hearing footsteps approaching her, she saw her crew staring worriedly over her and she smiles a weak smile at them. Sorry, did I wake any of you? She asks weakly, pulling herself to a sitting position, making sure not to move her right arm. So, what's been happening since I've been out? The others explain what they found. Only Rei's and Robin's story interested her in the least, not that Naruto and the others defeating Sattorii wasn't interesting, but she was more focused on theirs. After we separated, you were attacked by a Shandian named Isa. You barely made it out with your life and hid within her shadow, as she ventured back to her village, somewhere hidden amongst the clouds. And they plan on going to war with Enel, to retrieve this land that once belonged to their people. Adjusting her glasses with her left hand, she turns to Robin. You however found something much more interesting. A wide smirk appears on the navigator's face. Please explain it once more so I know my ears aren't playing tricks on me, please. Robin complies, finishing off the coffee Sanji had prepared for her. When we separated, I came near the edge of upper yard and found half of a house that resembled the one down on Jaya. When I compared it to the house in the story, I remembered Cricket telling us, at this money signs briefly appear in Nami's eyes. Just knowing her hunch is correct, I believe that this place is Jaya, or the other half Cricket's ancestor was searching for. Nami's eyes shine brightly. No. Great things were going to be happening soon. So you're saying this place used to be a part of Jaya? She asks once more just for confirmation. That's correct, Navigator-san, Robin answers softly, picking up her second book on Fuin Jutsu. Then that means one thing. Nami trails off, feeling giddy over the prospect of this new development. What does it mean, Nami-san? Sanji asks with hearts in his eyes, serving her a delicious, yet nutritious soup. This place, this island, it is where the city of gold lies. Everyone, including Luffy's eyes widen in realization. In other words, the city gold didn't sink, but it was shot into the sky by the knock upstream, meaning, she trails off, seeing an excited look spread across Luffy's face. Gold and treasure. Usopp cheers along with Luffy, and Chopper joins in the fun. Nami makes plans with the others, while Naruto sits back against a tree with Rei, watching wolves appear and tries to bully the others. Laughing, he watches Nami punches it into the ground with her good hand. When it looked like the leader wolf's companions were going to attack, the leader told them to back down and they all partied next to a bonfire. During the party, Gonfall awakens and talked to the others for a bit, about how he once knew a group of pirates and how the war in the land first started. Naruto listened to his tale silently, thinking on how things were turning out for both he and Rei. Who was dancing with the others, like any girl. For this night she wasn't a shinobi, she was girl, not a shinobi who kills, no, a pirate with her crewmates who are enjoying themselves in the moonlight. Fitting, a ninja phoenix dies and from those ashes, a pirate phoenix rises. Turning, Naruto saw Nami staring at her destroyed hand, frowning miserably. Walking over to her, he silently sits wanting to know if she's fine. Strangely, Naruto felt compelled to be by her side and comfort her, like a man would do his lover, but she wasn't his lover, his was dead along with his friends. Nami was a friend, a crewmate, not a lover, or anything of the sort. He was going to do this because she needed and no one would tell him otherwise. Nami. Hearing her name, she turns to see Naruto's electric blue eyes glancing into her red orbs. Nami almost scoffs finding that she was once again falling into the eyes, that seemed like an ocean to her. She was falling, she knew this. But she knew she couldn't tell him this. Nami didn't know why, but she knew she would open old wounds if she told him that she was falling for him. No, not love, but a harmless crush, for now anyways, that she knew to be true. Yes, Naruto, what is it? Feeling him place his hand on her shoulder, Nami had to repress the blush that was threatening to spread across her face. Are you all right? Is your arm still in pain? Nami smiles hearing the worry tone in his voice. I'm fine, nothing life-threatening, a little pain like this won't kill me. I'll just have to wait for my arm to heal and I'll be fine. She answers, moving her right hand slightly, only to release a muffled scream. Luckily only Naruto heard it, she wouldn't want the others to stop their party because of her. Nami, don't push yourself. You'll only bring yourself more pain. Why was he so worried over her? She was just a girl he met a few days ago, and yet, it feels like he knew her for so long, a time that was long since forgotten. Oh well, he wasn't too smart on the romance thing anyway, unless someone pointed it out to him or he discovered it himself. I'm alright, just some after pain, scratching her cheek. She eats some of the food Sanji prepared for all of them. Whatever, don't do anything stupid that will strain your arm. Standing, Naruto turned to leave when he felt someone staring at him. Turning his head slightly, he sees a figure in the shadows glaring down at him. Reaching for a kunai, Naruto stops when he spots the figure vanishing in a black wisp of smoke. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto jumps to the branch where the figure was and felt traces of Yoki in the air shocking him. Kyuubi, this is, I know, be careful, things aren't going to be easy for you or your companions in the future. I know, I'll keep an eye open. Jumping back over to the others, Naruto lands softly next to the staring Nami. What happened? Why you leave all of a sudden? Nothing, just thought I saw something, nothing to worry about. He lies, scratching the back of his head nervously. Nami narrows her eyes slightly, and Naruto turns back to the others to see that they hadn't noticed anything. Naruto changed that train of thought. When he felt Nami's, Rei's, Robin's, Zoro's, and surprisingly, Luffy's eyes on him even if he was still dancing like a fool. Sitting down next to Nami, he leans back and falls into a restless sleep. The next morning everyone had split up into groups. Nami, Sanji, Usopp, and Gonfall remained on the merry that they had set onto the cloud water. Rei was with Lu, FFY wandering around the area aimlessly looking for gold. Naruto was with Robin, who was exploring some ruins she had found before. Chopper was with Zoro, who was completely lost and had eventually lit up because of a giant snake that appeared out of nowhere. Over with Luffy and Rei, the captain had a stick poking at everything, when he saw someone glaring down at him from a tree. You're that bastard who attacked me yesterday. Wiper glared down at Luffy in response and turned to Rei, who was drawing kunai from her holster only to be stopped by Luffy, who spoke without turning. Don't you interfere, he's mine. Rei instantly complied. She only heard one person speak to her with such authority and power before, and that was her sensei, who only said it when he had a fight to settle and he wanted no one to interfere in his affairs. Yes, Captain. Jumping back, Rei lands in a tree with her kunai still in hand, preparing to fight if necessary. Luffy from his position smirks lightly seeing this and turns his full attention onto Wiper, who was aiming his bazooka at him. I'll only ask once, leave or die. To response to this, Luffy threw a punch at him, which he dodged effortlessly. flipping so he was behind the captain. Wiper aims his gun at Luffy and fires a cannonball from it. Gumo Gumo no Fusen. Swelling up his body to large proportions, the cannonball bounces off of Luffy's body. He immediately follows up with a secondary attack. Gumo Gumo no Pistol. Narrowly dodging the attack, Wiper flips his bazooka so the other end was aiming at Luffy, who was still suspended in midair. Burn Bazooka. A beam of blue flames shot out of the bazooka at the stunned captain. Acting quickly, Luffy stretches out his arm towards a branch and quickly snaps him in that direction to dodge the attack. Cracking his fingers, Luffy threw another punch at Wiper connecting with his jaw. The two continue to fight for 10 more minutes until Wiper fires another fire beam from his bazooka at Luffy, who was in the same direction Ray was in, causing them both to jump high into the air. Unfortunately for them, they were eaten by a giant snake, erasing their presences from all around. Naruto Sud. NLY stops feeling Ray's and Luffy's presence vanishes into nothing. Eyes widening, he sheds a silent tear, thinking about how he was going to face Shikamaru in the afterlife, or how he was going to deal with the crew now that Luffy was dead. Luckily for him, Kyuubi put those thoughts to rest. Stop your crying, Naruto, she's still alive. I can feel her Yoki, it's just masked by something huge. Oh, never mind then. Sweat dropping at Naruto's quick attitude change, she now knows he's still a little strange is the kindest way to put it. At Nami's side, she was leaning against the mass of the ship, bored out of her mind. She felt as if she was going to fall asleep right here, but she had to get the ship to the meeting point. It was at this point she felt a foreign and powerful presence behind her. Slowing, turning around, she saw Enel standing on the rail of the ship, smirking down at her with an apple in his hands. Sanji, who saw him, rushes forward preparing to kick him off the island, but Wa S instantly struck down by a powerful bolt of lightning, charring his body, knocking him unconscious. Usopp, acting brave, yet cowardly, loaded his slingshot but was too struck down by lightning, knocking him out. Gonfall was standing protectively next to Nami, who was staring up at Enel in stun-struck fear. You're that powerful aura I felt the other day. Nami glares defiantly into his eyes, amusing him greatly. Those eyes of yours are so amusing. I will only ask you once, become my queen and we can rule over Fairyverse together. I rather be struck down by 10,000 volts of lightning than go anywhere with you. Enel smirks darkly, charging 2 powerful volts of lightning between his fingers. I can arrange that. Right when he was about to attack her, explosions went through upper yard. Ah, the survival game has begun. Quote, survival game? Questions Nami, staring questionably into Enel's eyes. That's right, this is a survival game, and as God, I predict that there will be only X survivors throughout the whole ordeal. Finishing his apple, he turns around lazily. Consider yourself lucky. I have some Shandians to deal with, and like that, Enel vanished in a bolt of lightning. Help me take these guys to the infirmary and get them patched up. By the time she was finished, Gonfall already had Sanji in his arms, racing towards the infirmary. Gently lifting Usopp, Nami winces in pain as her arm is hit by Usopp's head. Ignoring it, she shifts so the weight was off her right arm, and slowly made her way to the room. Gonfall, seeing her having trouble, takes Usopp from her and places him on the free bed. Let's get to work. On Robin and Naruto's end, they heard the explosions and ignored them since they weren't anywhere near them. What are we looking for again? We're searching for the City of Gold. Ninja-san, my name is Naruto, call me Naruto. Ninja-san. Repressing a growl, Naruto glares at the smirking Robin, who was staring at the ruins in fascination. Writing down the ancient text in her notepad, she continues to search around the area, until she came to an area where a lot of cloud was piled at. Ninja-san, can I borrow one of your kunai? Sure. Tossing her the kunai, he watches as he begins to cut through the island cloud. When she cut through, he saw land underneath the cloud. Jumping after Robin, they land in the middle of a village, an empty ruin village. I don't understand, this should be where the gold is, Robin mumbles, staring at everything, frowning. Maybe someone up and took it all, answers Naruto, a little unsure. Then frowns, feeling someone behind him. Turning, he saw a shadow glaring at him. Stepping out of the shadow was a man with red eyes and wild red hair. His skin was unnaturally dark, It was as if his skin was the shadow. He wore a gray shirt, a black sash where a sword was strapped, gray slacks and gray boots. "You're the demon I've been sensing around the area," Naruto said, glaring at the demon, drawing his fan from his back. "I'm surprised you were able to sense me," the demon remarked slowly, a dark sheen in his red eyes. "What is it that you want, demon?" "Yours and your crewmates' deaths." The demon rushes towards Naruto at high speeds, drawing his sword as he does. Glaring, Naruto blocks the demon's attack and is shocked when he felt his knees buckling under the strength of the attack. Pushing Chakra into his limbs, he forces the demon back slightly. "Robin, get back, this isn't going to be an easy battle." Doing as told, Robin moves a fair distance away. The archaeologist watches the battle, worry hidden behind her emotionless eyes. Snapping his arm, Naruto knocks the demon back and spins in a circle, opening his fan, releasing an attack. Kamedachi no Jutsu. The demon negates the attack, to Naruto's surprise. With a shadow version his attack. What? The demon left Naruto no time to ponder what happened, because at that moment, the demon released a large energy wave from his sword, flashing through a chain of seals. Naruto bites his thumb and slams it on the ground. "I have to thank Orochimaru for this, Kuchiyos, Rashomon." A large gate shot out of the ground, blocking the attack completely. Much to Robin's and the demon's surprise. Smirking darkly, Naruto appears above the demon and swings down it with his closed fan. Jumping back, the demon narrowly dodges the attack. Hands glowing darkly, the demon slashes at Naruto, releasing multiple energy blades at him. Releasing a whirlwind from his fan, Naruto repels the attack, and follows up with a fireball. The fireball increased in size and power once it fused with the whirlwind. The demon snarls in aggravation, as the attack connected with him head-on. Releasing no scream, the demon begins to fade into the surrounding shadows, giving Naruto the illusion he had been incarnated into nothing. However, Naruto wasn't stupid. He had already figured out what the demon could do. The moment he saw it emerge from the shadow, well, he had a clue what he could do. And Naruto wasn't going to drop his guard. Spreading out his senses, he felt traces of Yoki still lingering in the air. Scanning the area with his eyes, he saw a flicker of something appear behind Robin. Robin move. Leaping away, Robin narrowly avoids being captured by a pair of hands that appeared from the shadows. Eyes narrowing, Robin watches as the demon appear once again from the shadows. "Vaillant fleur," Robin said, sprouting 10 arms on the demon's back, clutching his head and the other 10 clutching his arms, so he had his sword aimed at his neck. The demon was so shocked at this development that he didn't even think to overpower the girl. Seeing this, Naruto rushes forward, a Rasengan charging in his right hand. Rasengan, slamming the attack into the demon's chest. The demon goes flying into a building. Luckily for Naruto, that building had no ancient writing on it, or Robin would have been pissed. Running through the ruined building, Naruto found the demon dead, his body vanishing in a wisp of smoke, leaving his sword. Staring at it, he felt a strong demonic aura pulsing from it. Reaching for it, he was shocked by a bolt of energy, making him pull back his hand in surprise. Pulling out a scroll, he seals the sword into it, and pockets it. Turning to Robin, he saw her waiting patiently for him. "A sealing scroll, Ninja-san," the infuriating woman said casually, as if the last battle never happened. "That's right, this sword is too dangerous to carry around, so I'll leave it in here for now." Ninja-san, this beanstalk," staring at it. She saw that it was right where the gold bell should be. "What about it?" he asks, not knowing what she was figuring out. "This is where the gold bell should be, and if I'm correct, the bell is." She turns to the sky. "At the top," he said, realizing what she was getting at. "Yes." Walking a few feet up the stalk, he turns to Robin. "Are you coming?" Shaking her head, she told Naruto she would be searching around the area a little while longer. "I'll be fine, Ninja-san. Go." Nodding, Naruto ran up the stalk at high speeds. Watching him go, Robin returns to her research on the area. Ray and Luffy. "Captain, this is no cave," Ray said for the 100th time since they were swallowed. "Say something," Luffy calls out from the pile of junk he was digging through. "Look what I found." He comes out of the junk with a gold crown on his head and multiple gold trinkets in his hand. Gold, in the snake. She questions, digging in another pile, and pulls out multiple gold necklaces. Cool. Smiling slightly, she stuffs her pockets with some of the gold and places a strange necklace with a gold medallion attached to it around her neck. The medallion has runes decorating it on one side and a strange glow coming from it the moment she placed it on. On closer inspection, she found it was only half of a full medallion. Captain, how I look? Luffy gives Ray a big grin seeing the medallion hanging around her neck. Why is it glowing? Ray shrugs, not knowing the answer either. Don't know, but we should really be trying to find a way out of her. Walking, Ray suddenly collapses to the ground. Feeling the snake moving around like a maniac. Falling back down deeper into the snake, Ray curses whatever is making the snake go up as she crashed into Luffy, who was grumbling about mysterious caves. Hearing screams echoing through the snake, Ray and Luffy make their way to the loud noises. What they found wasn't what they expected at all. Nami, crazy girl, old man, weird bird, Ray calls out towards the two who were arguing, and Gonfall, who was petting his companion. Hearing Ray words, they glare at her. Isa glared, and Nami sighing in irritation. You four were eaten. She deadpans. How are you alive? Isa shouts, pointing an accusing finger at the bored Ray. Because I am. You troublesome Shandian. Isa glares angrily at Ray, not liking her even more than she already had. That won't be so much longer. In a flash, Isa's burned blade was in her hands, aimed at the impassive Ray. You can try to kill me and all, but it wouldn't be such a hot idea, seeing we're in a snake and all. We wouldn't want the snake going on another rampage because we were fighting in her or striking it with punches. She glares at the innocently whistling Luffy. Whatever, Isa huffs, then screams in fright as Luffy stretches his arms and appears next to her. What the hell? She shouts, staring at him. What are you? Luffy grins and stretches out his face widely. I'm a rubber man. I ate the Gomu Gomu, no am I? Isa just stared at Luffy, not believing what she was seeing. It was strange and unbelievable, yet it was true. He could actually stretch out his limbs. I'm in a fantasy world, mumbles Isa, not believing it at all, denying it fully, even if it did look cool. That may be, but your little revelation does nothing for our current situation. Isa glares at the nonchalant Ray. We should head for the exit, so we can leave this place before we're digested or something disgusting like that. Right, so how do we leave this mysterious cave? Ray glares at Luffy, wanting to knock him on his head for his words, but thought better of it, seeing she didn't want to waste the energy. We walk in the opposite direction where we being pushed back, the girl explains, walking in the direction of the mouth. Idling, twirling her new necklace around. Wonder how Sensei is handling things in the outside world, Ray thinks, ignoring the antics of Luffy, who was just finding he was eaten by a snake and making a big deal about it, not to mention disgusting suggestions on how to escape. But there was one thing she was willing to agree with Isa about, even if she wouldn't say it out loud. Nami was scary when she was angry, really scary. Naruto Uzumaki. Running up the stalk, Naruto came across a battlefield where a caged Zoro, Wiper, Bram, and Naru saw Chopper unconscious on the ground, blood dripping from the wounds on his body. Looking down, he saw Lackey, another Shandian, unconscious, her body smoking slightly. Flashing through hand seals, he places his hands over her body, healing her wounds. Seeing that he'd done enough, Naruto uses Shunshin to appear next to Chopper, only to activate a trap. Grabbing Chopper, he avoids the many barbed res that would have ripped him to shreds. Landing on a house, Naruto leaps off it once more, feeling he triggered another trap. Dodging the attacks once more, Naruto does the smart thing and Shunshins out the area. Appearing next to the unconscious Shandian, gently placing Chopper on the ground, Naruto heals all of Chopper's major wounds. Done with that, he turns just in time to see Zoro finishing off with his new attack, the 108-pound cannon. Grinning, Naruto was about to congratulate the guy, but before he could, he sensed something heading their way. Lightning danced along the clouds. Knowing instinctively what was about to happen, Naruto grabs Chopper and the girl, just as the cloud beneath his feet evaporated into nothing. Falling, Naruto couldn't help but wonder if this was the end. To further his point, he even screamed it to the heavens. Is this the ENDDDDDD? He shouts, falling, trying his best to dodge the multiple rocks trying to crush him and his packages. Deciding to stop his foolish acting, Naruto kicks off a rock and rights himself. Leaping from rock to rock, Naruto lands on the ground. Below gently, sighing, he looks up in the sky to see more rocks heading his way. Dropping the 2 bags, Naruto whips out his fan and releases a jutsu, destroying the rocks before they could reach them. Alright, barely survived that. Laughing, Naruto glares at the lone rock that hits him in the head. Drawing blood, hearing a shout near him, Naruto turns to see Zoro punching a rock in aggravation. Repressing the urge to sweat drop, he turns to the giant snake to see it, crying tears of joy from what he could tell. You're very noisy, King of the Sky. Enel starts throwing a charged lightning ball into the sky. You annoying snake, die, God's judgment. The lightning man shouts as a beam of concentrated lightning engulfed the giant snake, frying it completely. Isa, shouts out Wiper. Shit, Nami, cries out Zoro in horror, until he stopped when he saw Nami a few feet from his position. Zoro, Robin, a surprised Nami exclaims, standing next to Naruto, who they were all just noticing he was there with an unconscious lackey and Chopper next to them. You too, Naruto. Naruto gives Nami a weak grin. When the hell did you get out of the damn snake? Zoro shouts angrily. Never mind that, but Luffy and Ray are still trapped inside the snake, she groans out. An air of annoyance and depression around her. How the hell did they get in there? Both Zoro and Naruto shout at the girl. I don't know. They were there before I was, she shouts back irritably. The two were brought out of their arguing when Wiper attacked Enel, who easily dodged the attacks from the Shandians' burn bazooka. Summoning a orb cloud, Enel sits on it, staring at the 3 pirates, the former god and single Shandian in amusement. Is this the thanks I get for bringing you back to your homeland? Enel asked the Shandian. Besides, the game isn't over yet. Game? Questions Wiper angrily. That's right. You and the others are still contestants of my game. Naruto glares at the man in annoyance. The goal of the game is simple. 3 hours after the Shandians enter the island, how many people among the 81 contestants would survive? The others all glared at the man, their anger rising. Nami meanwhile was hiding behind some rocks, holding Chopper safely in her arms, while also watching over the unconscious lackey. I am also a contestant, however. I even allowed some extra contestants to join the game after it had started. My prediction was that only 6 contestants would survive. At this time Nami was panicking slightly, praying that the man hadn't seen her. In 3 minutes, the 3-hour time limit will be over. This is problematic, seeing there are still 7 survivors. Here, Nami was now panicking knowing the man knew she was here. As you know, God's prediction could never be wrong. Tell me, Naruto, Wiper, Gonfall, Zoro, and Robin. Each stare impassively at the smirking Enel. Which one of you will be eliminated? Should I do it or would of you kill the one chosen? You want to? Zoro asked Robin. No thank you, answers Robin. Me neither, he answers back. Not me, adds in Wiper. I also refuse, puts in Wiper. I second that, adds Naruto. They each heard Nami gasp in panic, turning to her, then turn away ignoring her, and focus on Enel. You will, they shout pointing their individual weapons at Enel. Foolish, each on their guard, the pirates, Skypian, and Shandian prepare to battle the god of Skypia. Notice, sorry to all those who was waiting for the next chapter of a new life, but I'm taking it down and doing it over from scratch. Why? Well, because I personally think it's crap, and needs to be redone. No other reasons but that really, so yeah. Since I'm a quick thinker, when I'm not being lazy, the remodel should be up in a week or so with the same number of chapters. But knowing me, it'll probably be longer. So don't get your hopes up and flame my ass, if it's not up soon. This story will be taken down in a few days, so if you wish to read it over you can, but it'll be gone soon. Notice too, after much thought, I've decided to scrap all my stories and work on a new set. Things I've been working on for quite a while now. I know some of you may not like it. Hell, I'm pissed when the Rise I'm reading is suddenly taken down for some reason. However, there are some stories, and as in some, I mean 2 stories that will be remade, redone, and overall better, but will still be taken down. The Guardians, Multi-Cross. A New Life, Naruto and One Piece. I can't say much for the rest, because I really lost all interest in them, which is sad, because I did like them, but the way I had things going, in my view, they weren't going to work. So, what can I say other than, sorry if you're upset, but this is how it is. On other news, the stories I will be writing will all be connected one way or another. Until I can somehow join them. In a way, it'll be similar to my Demon Lord series, except I won't drop it, hopefully. Also, Ayumi no Kaido, which will be renamed Ayumi the Phantom Thief to make things easier for me, will also be rewritten, and will be one of the many stories connected to my new set. In fact, the Guardians will have a connection to these stories, which will connect to my next big project. The Celestials, but that isn't until later, much, much later. But I guess I shouldn't have mentioned that. Oh well, who cares, just know the stories will be up until Monday.